What is going on, IB Nation? Welcome to another edition of the post-game show during the game. And
kind of post-game-ish.
We just figured let's just get this thing rolling. Currently, Notre Dame is up 49-7. It is the 2-minute timeout, not the 2-minute warning. It is the 2-minute timeout at the moment. And so, you know what? We figured let's get this party started right. And Notre Dame's up 49-7 over the 19th ranked team in the country, the Army Black Knights. And this one was really never in doubt, Brian.
No.
And, Notre Dame is doing what you're supposed to do. And again, people are going to try to explain away that it was Army, but it's still the 19th ranked team in the country, because as I look through college football today, and let me just say, this was a great day to just sit back and relax and watch a bunch of college football, okay? And my clicker is like on fire right now because I was going back and forth between different games, just waiting for Notre Dame. And as everything was going on, it's like, okay, Notre Dame better take care of their business based on everything else that's happening. And I would say they absolutely took care of their business with an exclamation point. So we're going to jump into all of it. We're going to dive into all of it. We may even talk a little bit about how the landscape of college football may have affected Notre Dame a little bit. But before we do, we got to tell you about our friends over at MyBookie. They, look, if you haven't joined MyBookie yet, if you haven't placed your first bet, make sure you go over there, use promo code IRISH, and it will double your first deposit. And that way you've got even more money to play with, more money to have some fun with. And then once you become a member and you are a frequent user, you can join their loyalty rewards program and just keep on going. And so definitely jump over to MyBookie. It is the site that just keeps on paying out because, especially if you bet on Notre Dame. If you bet on Notre Dame to cover, you're in the money, baby. So that's a pretty safe bet these days. So join our friends over at MyBookie and you won't be disappointed. All right, Brian. Go ahead.
It's kind of funny. It's the post game show, but we were so fired up. We're like, dude, we're gonna start early. And when Aeneas housed that one, we're like, we're going to 10-10. Let's get started. Man, this is I'm obviously we're still watching it. I hope they're able to keep them out of the end zone here. I'm shocked that Army still has Bryson Daly in the game. They're trying to play for the AAC championship.
Correct.
You're getting nothing out of this right now. It makes no sense why they're doing that. But
the only reason I was thinking that they were going to keep him in was to get to that 100-yard mark.
And he's already over
keep that streak going. Took him 32 carries to get it, but he did get it. Then you yank him. I am also very surprised by that entire situation.
I don't want the kid to get hurt. I don't want the kid to get hurt. But this is the risk you put him in.
And he's taking some
put him out there
shots.
Exactly. He just right before the timeout, he got drilled in space. So I don't understand what they're doing right now, to be honest with you. And I really, really am tired of Notre Dame giving up these. I got to find something to complain about, right? Isn't that what we do? So I'm tired of Notre Dame giving up these last minute touchdowns. Well, otherwise they'd have the number one scoring defense in the country. Notre Dame is the worst last minute of the game up 40 defense in the country. They get scored on every time. I'm being sarcastic here. Man, I got to tell you, man, this is Vince. This is here's kind of what I want to start off with because the game's still going on. I want to talk big picture because I don't want to hear jack from anybody about Notre Dame's schedule. Nobody. Because what we're watching week after week after week are all these quote unquote top teams getting beat by mediocre teams. They're not getting, you've got Georgia beating Tennessee and Ole Miss beating Georgia, but there's a lot of games being won by 6-4, 5-5 type of teams. And I'm watching Notre Dame play these same type of teams. It's a soft schedule, and they destroy them week after week after week after week.
Yeah.
And so, I don't want to hear jack from anyone talking about their schedule as I'm watching Alabama getting destroyed by a 5-5 Oklahoma team who stinks.
Destroyed.
A&M is getting beat in the fourth quarter by a 4-6 Auburn team who lost at home to Cal. Right? I don't want to hear it. I'm watching Texas beat, and they put the final touchdown on the board against a 4-7 Kentucky team. I watched Penn State get gifted a game against a 6-5 Minnesota team. I watched Miami get beat 2 weeks ago by a Georgia Tech team that Notre Dame smacked. I just watched Ole Miss get outplayed by a 6-5 Florida team that got destroyed by Miami. And I watched UMass run the ball down Georgia's throat for the first half of that game. They had over 150 rushing yards in the first half. So I don't want to hear jack about Notre Dame's schedules, this, or that, because I'm watching these quote-unquote good teams get beat by or barely beat bad teams, mediocre teams, week after week after week. And Notre Dame has not played we are now on November 23rd. Notre Dame has not played a game that was in doubt in the third quarter since the end of September, Vince. The end of September. And they showed a graphic this week of all the top 10 teams. Who's beat the most bowl-eligible teams? It's Notre Dame. They had 5. Nobody else in the top 10 had more than 3.
Right.
So when you talk about, well, their schedule's this or that.
This makes 6, by the way. This makes 6.
Yes, that's
right.
right.
6, yeah.
Well, what does that have to do with Alabama getting beat by Oklahoma? I mean, is the SEC schedule, this is the spin, the SEC schedule so tough that even a team like Oklahoma can win? Bull crap. Your league's not that good. Because you've got to get up every week to play teams that are trying to beat you. Notre Dame answers that bell week after week after week. Now, they got to do it for one more. Season's not over yet. They got a big one next weekend.
Yeah.
But I'm watching this team week after week after week after week answer the bell and not only win, but dominate as I watch Alabama get beat by Vanderbilt and almost get beat by South Carolina, who's red hot, by the way. Also, we should talk about that. I watch Alabama get smacked by Oklahoma. I'm watching Texas A&M lose to Auburn. I'm watching Florida beat Ole Miss. I'm watching Georgia Tech beat Miami, a team, Louisville losing to Stanford. Like, it's so hard for teams to answer the bell week after week after week, and Notre Dame is doing that. And they're not only winning now, and I believe they now have the longest win streak in the country, because coming into the game, Army had it. And this will be win number 9 for Notre Dame. Oregon, that's right. So they'd have the second longest win streak at the Power 4 level.
Yep.
So, because Texas, Indiana had one, right?
Yeah.
They were in there. They had a 10-game winning streak coming in today. That's over. So you're talking about a red hot team that each week plays these quote unquote not great teams and dominates when everybody else is getting beat. They're about to try to punch this garbage touchdown in the game. You know what? Notre Dame should have not called off the dogs in this game. This is bull crap. But anyway, this is what I'm loving, Vince, because while everybody else talks about the schedule this, the schedule that, all this other nonsense, I'm watching Notre Dame just absolutely destroy people week after week after week. We watched them beat Virginia last week 35-14 and shot themselves in the foot 15 times. We watched them play a C+ B- game against Florida State and win by 49. You know what I mean? We watched them play a C+ game against Georgia Tech and win by 18 in the game where Georgia Tech scored in the last minute of the game. And what has Georgia Tech done since then? They've had some pretty big wins, have they not? So this is why I keep saying this whole nonsense about, it's so tough. And okay, Penn State's not getting beat by Oregon. They're not getting beat by Michigan. They didn't play those teams. They're getting beat. They're almost got beat today by Minnesota. They almost got beat by Bowling Green. Notre Dame had one bad game, and they have pretty much whipped everybody else they've played. So, man, I got to tell you, Vince, it's fun to watch this team play especially when you watch the rest of college football and you watch all these teams struggle week after week after week with just kind of okay teams and play big games and then come down. And Notre Dame is answering that bell. And this game, it's 49-7. Army's trying to punch one in here at the end. They're about to punch one in to make it 49-14. This was a dominant performance, and they just ran it in.
And look, nothing changes. 49-14, 49-7. Nothing really changes at that point outside of the overall points against, situation. And look, Army was ahead of Notre Dame in the points against, and they're going to fall behind them now that Notre Dame just put 49 on them. So there is going to be a different, what I mean? So,
and Ohio State gave up 50. Ohio State, I think, is really close. 15. They're all really, really close.
Yeah, Notre Dame was the only one that was 11. I think there was 2 that were 10.
Ohio State, Army was at 10-3. Ohio State was at 10-3. Notre Dame's 11-4. Texas is 11-9. Ole Miss was at 12-9. That's tough. Penn State was at 13-6. All those, Indiana was at 13-8. That's the next. All those teams gave up
More than that.
either at or above their average.
Yeah.
Notre Dame did, or excuse me, at or above what Notre Dame gave up today.
Right. So Notre Dame's going to move up just because of what they just did.
Correct. So Ohio State will move up to number 1. Notre Dame will move up to number 2.
Yeah.
In scoring defense. And I mean, Army came into this game averaging over 330 rushing yards a game, and they had to get a bunch of garbage yards against the second team defense to get over 200 in this game. This was an absolutely dominant performance.
Look,
Vince.
It took the Daly kid, who's a really good football player. It took him 32 carries to get to 100 yards. That's 3 yards a carry by my math in my head. Like, Army really couldn't do anything offensively against Notre Dame's defense outside of that one drive. It's like Notre Dame always gives up a drive. Like that seems
and it was
what happens.
Driven. I mean, it was
3 penalties.
Yeah, it was. And the face mask was, I thought, a bullcrap penalty. But like, here's my thing. Can I just say this last thing, Vince? I know a lot of people. Army's not good, guys. I watched a lot of Army film this last week. That is a good football team.
Oh yeah,
that Notre Dame made look like garbage.
Especially,
they made them look like garbage. That is a big, physical, well-coached football team that Notre Dame just annihilated. Yeah. Like, people are going to talk, oh, come on. People are going to talk about, it's Army. Guys, that is a really quality football team.
No, they're playing in their conference championship.
Yes, they've already clinched the AAC conference championship. They clinched it 2 weeks ago.
Clinched a berth into it. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And last time I checked, Boise ended up winning, but they were only up 17-13.
You know what Wyoming, I mean? Who's not good.
Exactly. So that kind of enhances the point that you just made. But the point that I was going to make is if Boise State stumbles at some point, there's an outside chance that the winner of the AAC championship could be the 4 seed, Brian. The group of, look, right now, based on the carnage in the Big 12, the group of 5 team is going to be 4 seed in the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just I don't know, man. Like that's just nutty, and that pretty much just defines everything that is the college football playoff right now. And we will jump into more college football playoff talk tomorrow as we do and upon further review. And we're going to get back to this game. So it is looks like you're probably ahead of me, but
it's 49-14
on it. Yeah. Okay, 49-14 is your final. From Yankee Stadium in this one. Notre Dame with a big win. Look, that's still the 19th ranked team in the country. Mm-hmm. And I think people need to remember that now they won't when the talking heads get going
they won't.
And everything else. But look, Notre Dame beat Notre Dame beat Army 49-14, who is ranked 19th. Penn State struggled with Minnesota, won by a point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just based on the way these teams are playing and the eyeball tests and resumes and whatever else you want to use, because I also wouldn't be surprised if Army is still ranked after Tuesday.
Possibly.
I'm just, it's a possibility. Yeah. So Notre Dame would have more ranked wins. They're going to have all of these different things. And they should, look, I didn't think it was going to be till next week that potentially Notre Dame could jump Penn State. I think it should be this week right now. With the way Notre Dame is playing, I think they jump them. But a truly dominant, performance by Notre Dame. There's plenty to nitpick, I'm sure. Obviously, the kicking game, not great for Notre Dame right now. They didn't punt at all in this game, so I can't even rip the punt game. But the field goal kicking game is not great. Obviously, missed a field goal wide right on a 48-yard attempt, and then the second one got blocked. That's not on the kicker. That's the fact that they let somebody come through untouched up the middle. So there's a lot of aspects of the field goal kicking unit that need to be fixed.
Sure.
A lot of aspects.
I mean, talk about freaking special teams right now, or I'm going to get mad. I'm
out.
Vince, I just enjoyed this one. And here's the crazy thing, Vince. This isn't a complaint. This is just an observation. That should have been way worse. Like you said, you missed 2 field goals. I don't really count the turned it over inside the 5 because your defense immediately forced a 3 and out, and you got the ball at the 40 and went right down in and scored. I mean, so you ended up getting it, but maybe you might have stopped them 3 and out anyway and got the ball back and put it in again. So, it's one of those things, Vince, where you talk about you want to get hot at the right time, right?
Sure.
And Notre Dame is certainly getting hot at the right time.
Well, and look,
And they're doing it in all phases. It's not like the defense was great tonight, but it's not just the defense that is that way. It's the offensive start is really getting close to peaking if they haven't peaked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, Vince, is like, yes, your third phase has got to get figured out, right? But
absolutely,
this is one of those things where you were so dominant that people are complaining about the third string quarterback not getting into the game. That people are dominating that you didn't win 62-7 because you missed a couple field goals. Like that.
Right.
That's how you know you're cruising when people are complaining about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. It's like that was a fun game to watch because Notre Dame came out, Vince, and the thing I like this is an Army team. You and I have watched a lot of film of this team, Vince. This is a physical Army team, and the misconception a lot of people had about this Army team is that they're a typical service academy that is small. Their offensive line averaged 306.6 pounds. They had one guy that was 290. Everybody else was 305 or bigger. They had, I think, 3 guys over 310. And Notre Dame's defensive line, without their All-American nose tackle, dominated that offensive line. Their defensive line has size. They're physical. They play great, just disciplined run defense. And Notre Dame pushed them around like they are just some bum team.
Right.
And they're not, Vince. That's the thing, is like, this is a good football team in Army. You don't get to 9-0 by accident, Vince. And yes, it's a group of 5 team, but they're not a MAC team. They're not a Sun Belt. Probably been more competitive if they were a MAC team, the way Notre Dame has played this year. They're not some low-level Sun Belt team. This is the AAC, which competes year after year with the Mountain West as the best group of 5 conference there is. And they clinched a spot in the championship game 2 weeks ago. And they have not had in their 9 wins, they have not had a single game that was decided within single digits. And that continued tonight because that loss wasn't within single digits. I mean, think about that, Vince. Like, this is a team that is absolutely destroying people. Absolutely destroying people.
Yeah.
And quality teams. And man, that's fun. I mean, if you think about it, their last 4 games their last 5 games, they've played what? It's been starting with Georgia Tech, right? So you have Georgia Tech, who they beat before their last bye, but they played Georgia Tech, they played Navy, they played Florida State, they played Virginia, they played Army. Virginia's got to win next week, but there's a chance that they'll be a bowl team if they can win next week. So 4 of those 5 teams are bowl eligible teams. 3 of those teams have 7 or more wins. Georgia Tech is 7-4, Navy 7-3, Army's 9-1, and Notre Dame blew out all those teams. Like, they literally haven't played. Think about it, Vince. They have not played a competitive football game since September 28th. We're talking almost 2 months since Notre Dame has played a legitimately competitive football game where when the final seconds of the third quarter click down that you win in the fourth quarter thinking, this is a game.
Yeah.
Like, that's how dominant this team is, man. And boy, it's that was a fun performance watching. Here's the other thing too, Vince. And I was getting ready to say, and I went off on a tangent. I'm just so fired up, man.
I get it.
It's been a long week. I needed this. I needed this win so bad, dude.
And after the way I get that, believe me.
But like,
but after the way, even the way like if we're just focusing on college football, the way Saturday went, the way this day went, the way this day is going currently, and then to watch Notre Dame do what they did. You know what I mean? Like, this game was never in doubt. They were up 14-0 before somebody could make a sandwich. Like, this game was over at that point. Yes, Army went down and scored a touchdown, but did anybody in their right mind think that this game was going to be competitive after watching Notre Dame for 2 series? I didn't.
It was over.
It was over.
It was over at the end of the first quarter, Vince.
The game was over. Okay,
100%.
And you can't say that about really any of the teams that played today in college football. Yes, some teams pulled away late, some things like that. And you mentioned the Georgia game, there were definitely some teams that made the score look different than the game was being played at that time. Yeah. But Notre Dame dominated it from start to finish.
They were,
it was refreshing.
Like, Vince, it was like, I try not to read too much into what coaches say. And I don't really care what Marcus Freeman said before the game. That doesn't matter as much. It was more about.
I did like that though.
And that's fine, but like, his body language was like, there was a confidence about him before the game, and he kept talking about physical and physical and physical, and that's what it was, man.
It shows violence, man.
It was. They were so physical in this game, Vince. Like it was.
Yep.
Like and I'm not saying this isn't like I enjoy watching guys get injured. I don't. It's not, but it's just, it's another game. It's an observation, not a praise. It's
Correct.
not like, oh, I love this. It's an observation, but this is yet the latest game where you just see the other team constantly having guys limp off the field.
Yeah.
And just
it's
getting
a trend.
Slow. I mean, it happens every week, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're just so There's two things about this team that this game showed very clearly, Vince. Notre Dame is really freaking fast.
Yeah.
And this is a really physical football team. I mean, like, I'm so sick of people that just can't like enjoy a butt whooping and you've got to talk down the competition and all this other crap that I'm so sick of. But it's one of those things, Vince, where I watched this Army team and I've watched a ton of their film, and they were not giving up 82.6 rushing yards a game because they suck and they just played a bunch of teams who suck worse. You don't dominate opposing run games that way. Notre Dame, think about this. Notre Dame doubled Army's yards allowed total just on runs where a running back was not touched. Like they had 3 long touchdown runs in this game where literally the running back was not touched, including their second team offensive line came in the game. And it just because it was such a physical game, and they were very well coached in this game and very well prepped in this game. And this is a well-coached team. And it's another week where I feel like they matched and surpassed that level of preparation, that level of focus, a level of physicality, and a level of execution outside of Notre Dame's red zone offense, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But just the big picture thing is you're just not going to have a chance against this team with the talent they have, the speed they have, and the physicality they have when they're prepared and locked in. And the thing that was the concern about Freeman's team, the concern about Kelly's teams was they were just always kind of even keel, and they would play down to competition a little bit, and they would have, games. They'd always beat the bad teams, but they had a bunch of close games, and then they couldn't get up for the big games. And then, Freeman came in, and it's like, okay, you play great against the good teams, but then you play down to bad teams, and you'll look great for 3-4 weeks, and then you just have that what the F are you doing kind of game. Guys, we're now 9 games in a row where they've literally just beat the crap out of everybody that played. And the only quote-unquote close game they had was a game they led for 52 minutes, and the only reason they trailed at all is because they fumbled the opening kickoff. And they took their foot off the gas and let that team back in that game. That was the only one where you looked at and said, boy, you could have really, like, they should have beaten that Louisville team by even more. And that's the thing about it is, guys, is the notion that this team just doesn't show up week after week is slowly being eliminated. And if they can win next weekend, and we'll talk plenty about that next week, then it's dead. It's dead because they've played those type of teams. They've played Marshall caliber teams in this 9-game win streak. They've played Northern Illinois or worse caliber teams in this 9-game win streak. And they've not only won, fellas, they're whooping teams. As I'm looking over at the scoreboard right now, and I'm watching with 7 minutes left, Alabama's down by 21 to a 5-5 Oklahoma team. As I'm watching Texas A&M losing with under 8 minutes left to a 4-6 Auburn team. As I watched Miami a couple weeks ago get beat by a Georgia Tech team that Notre Dame smacked. As I watched Penn State barely beat a 6-5 Minnesota team who just lost to Rutgers a week ago. As I watched Ole Miss get beat by a 6-5 Florida team. As I watched UMass run the ball down Georgia's freaking throat in the first half of that game. Guys, they had over 150 rushing yards against Georgia in the first half. UMass, 2-8 UMass, who just fired their head coach. So don't talk to me about Notre Dame's schedule when Notre Dame is absolutely annihilating people. And that's what was fun about it. And because they're prepared, they're focused, and they're freaking fast and physical, man. This is a dominant football team, fellas. And now they got to keep it rolling.
Yeah.
But right now, as of today, it's impressive. It's impressive.
All right. Let's welcome Sean Davis to the show, my man, Sean. Thanks for joining us in this little post-game show where Notre Dame wins 49-14 in dominant fashion. Give me your initial thoughts on the game, Sean, and kind of some of your takeaways.
I love what I saw. I even love what I saw from the backups, offensively and defensively. Once again, this team, and I think credit, has to go to Lauren Lando and the entire staff. The physicality of this team. Of course, the injuries, you have some questions about that, but the physicality of this team week after week after week, and the way they just physically dominate teams at this point is something that we haven't seen for a long time in Notre Dame. And I think that is something that plays into when you're talking about having national championship teams. You dominate the line of scrimmage and you dominate and physically whip opponents. That's something that I love to see. I also love to see the efficiency of Riley Leonard continuing to grow, right? I said it this week. I said, I don't need him to be great. I just need him to be great at what he does. And I think if he's great at what he does, then the offense will play off of him. I'm sure we're going to get into it, the red zone. I just need him to stop jumping. He's not Superman. Like, you don't have a cape. Stay on the ground, my man.
You're not Jeremiah Love.
No, that Burt is a little bit shorter than Jeremiah Love. Stay grounded. But no, other than that, I thought the running game, Billy Shrout had one of his most, him and Anthony Knapp tonight. I know you guys are going to cover it tomorrow, but hey, that left side was something nasty tonight. Just really something nasty. And I don't even know, coming into this game, I knew I watched film, like you said, and watched other games for Army. And I saw how stout they were against the run. But I did say this week, I said their biggest thing is that they simulate a lot of pressure and different fronts. And I said, when you do that, if Notre Dame early goes to the RPO, which they did, and if they could pop one of the RPOs and then, just stay consistent with the run game, they're going to gas some big runs. I just felt like they were going to gas some big runs, and they broke 3 off tonight. And Jeremiah Love, without question, he's just amazing, man. That kid is a heck of an athlete. I'm glad he's on our squad. So overall, Vince, the kick, yeah. I mean, there are small things you can pick at that need to be corrected. Forecasting for a playoff run or a playoff game. That goes without saying. But how you could be upset with going up again, I don't care what the disparity of talent is. They were a ranked football team that was undefeated, that was a top 5 defense, and really hadn't been shut down. And they were averaging 34 points and putting up over 440 yards per game. And if you're not impressed by what Notre Dame's defense did tonight, and the tone honestly was set by this offense, because once this offense put points on the board, you knew that was going to be the end of it, because Army is going to have to play from behind. And Army emptied the tank. They tried everything to get this Notre Dame defense out of whack. And this Notre Dame defense was just robotic. Already, I'll save it for Double R, because I already know he's going to talk about a certain individual's hands tonight on defense, but I'll let him get to it.
We'll get to the offense and defense specifically, Ryan, just so you know where we're at. We're still kind of just talking about overall thoughts in the game. I'm pretty fired up. Vince is fired up. John's fired up. Ryan, what are your thoughts? Big picture thoughts of the game.
Oh, it was the worst performance of the season so far. It was awful, man. It was so bad.
Ryan's like, earlier in the week, I was talking like nice things. It didn't feel right. I gotta get back. I gotta get back to my groove. gotta bring the negativity tonight on this show. Now, I mean, I don't know how anybody could be like overly. I mean, like, there's a couple things that, Sean, I think you just hit on a little bit, right? Like, there's correctable things that like still need to get better in some capacities, right? But like overall, you just faced the top 20 team and you beat the what out of them. I mean, like, and it was one of the things that we've been asking for more from Coach Freeman and like this team just in general this year is like, come out and be the aggressor. I mean, literally in his pregame interview, they were asking about like what is like the theme of tonight, and I think he said like violence, right? Like the violent was the word that he just kept using, and I'm just like, and from the jump offensively, I mean, you getting that 3 and out to start the game, and then you did what you did offensively on that first drive, like you took their souls very early on in this game. Like obviously they're
military folk. So like, they're not going to back down for the challenge, and they're going to keep trudging along and keep doing what they do. But like, you took their souls from them very early on in this football game. And there was no thought at any point. It was like, man, if they let their foot off the gas, they might let this team come back in the game. Like, even when it was like 14-7 and they had that goal line stand and everything, I was still like, there's no, like, Army has no chance. Like, they have no chance.
I was like, oh, you know what? Good for them. That was a good stop. That was good for them.
It was a great stop.
It was a great stop.
I didn't like the sequence of play calling on that stop.
Trust me, we're going to talk about that when we get to the offensive section. Hey, Ryan, I wanted to bring something up because you talked about what Freeman said before the game, and people kind of got annoyed with us early in the season, like against Northern Illinois and Miami, when we were so annoyed by what he said. Because like, what you guys have to understand is it's not what he said; it's the fact that he's saying it tells us that's where their mindset was during the week of preparation. That's the problem. And you watch Marcus Freeman now. And it's not even just what he said, but like, it's how he says it. It's like early in the season, he would look down, he would have his head down, and he would just kind of, and now he's like, you saw him at halftime. He was like, eyes up, because he was so annoyed that they didn't finish. What was it, like 28-7? Something like that. And he was mad. And I'm like, good. I love that. And I'm
literally writing an article about that to like go off of your point. Like, that is important. I think it's very important. Yeah.
His mindset, guys, it's like your football team feeds off of two things: your head coach and your captains. And right now, Marcus Freeman is fired up and holding this team to a standard, and they're matching it, guys. Like, again, they're not perfect. Just like last week, there's a lot. But when you are this talented and you're this fast and you're this physical and you're this deep, if you're focused and this is the whole point. This is what we used to get mad about with, in the Kelly era, and what we got mad about the last 2 years with Freeman and the Northern Illinois game in September was, you don't even have to play great. You just have to be fired up to be out there. And you're going to beat the teams you play because you're more talented than them. And that's what we're seeing week after week, guys. And so when he said that before the game, I was like, okay. Like, I'd been nervous all day because, Ryan, I've had such an awful week, and then I'm watching all these teams get upset. I'm like, oh, my God, this is the last thing I need this week is for this team to get beat. And after the first 3 and out, and then the offense goes down the field, thanks, I'm like, it's over. I'm serious. I was like, it's over. Like, they have Army has no chance if Notre Dame's playing like this on the first series of the first offense and defensive series of the games.
I did something today that I haven't done in a very long time. I talked trash to people before this game because there was several of my buddies text me and was like, oh, Army going to pull that upset tonight? And I'm like, there's not a chance. Zero chance that that's going to happen. Zero. And I'm not like that. And I haven't been like that for a few years because, I know we always joke about the BK PTSD, but like, it's there, man, where you're like, oh man, this might be a game for a letdown, right? Like, it's always in the back of your mind a little bit. Not once did that happen during this game. I expected this. I almost put on Twitter, but then I was like, I don't want to look like an idiot afterwards in case it doesn't go it goes sideways a little bit. But like, I knew Notre Dame was going to have this performance today. Like, I did it. I probably would have predicted, I ended up doing like 38-10, I think was my final prediction. Like before the game though, I'm like, I think Notre Dame's going to drop a 40 burger on this team and they're going to dominate them defensively. Like, I really just had a feeling about it. So, and that is a testament to what you're talking about, Brian, for me, is that this team has adopted Coach Freeman's tenacity and his angst and his demeanor. Like, it really has. I mean, because let's be honest, right? Like, we're talking about 17 or 18 to 23-year-old kids still, right? For the most part. I know people are going to be like, they're adults. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, they're adults. All right. But they're still young and they're still impressionable, right? And in that age frame, it is very easy to check out when things aren't going well, and it's really easy to ride the wave when everything is going well, right? And the minute that you lost Northern Illinois, a lot of guys could have just been like, man, this sucks.
We're seeing that happen with other teams, Ryan.
Yeah.
We're seeing that happen. I mean, LSU has that one loss, and their team just goes down, right? I mean, we've seen other teams this year. It's not just LSU. They're just happen to be on the current losing streak. But we've seen this happen with other teams where they have a bad game, and all of a sudden it just kind of, like USC. Loses the game,
literally has guys have checked out. Like, literally have checked out. Like, we're good. We're good.
Alabama had that after the Vanderbilt loss. They had one of their D tackles just quit team, went in the portal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and here's the deal is that for the playoffs, as long as Notre Dame takes care of business next week, and I think they will, like, I just don't see a letdown happening next week. Like, just full transparency. I don't. So Notre Dame getting into the playoffs, though, for the first time in a long time, and obviously Notre Dame can lose, right? Like, Notre Dame can win, Notre Dame can lose. A lot of different things could happen. But for the first time, there's not a single team that they could put on the field that I'm just going to be like, oh, Notre Dame must have a chance to win. Like, nobody. There's nobody. And that's Coach Freeman. Like, and I was his harshest critic early in the year when things weren't going well, but I have come around to this team has bought into him fully. And again, we can still not agree 100% with some of the structure stuff on either side of the ball and all that type of stuff. But regardless, there's not a team that Notre Dame will see in the first round of the playoffs, as long as they make it there, that I'll say Notre Dame doesn't have a chance. There's not a single one. And that is a testament to Coach Freeman and this aura around the program right now. It is.
Yeah. You guys are seeing, like, and Sean, you and I have talked a lot about this. You're seeing what happens when you make good hires. We're seeing a team led by arguably the best coordinator tandem in the country playing mature football week after week. Well, shocker, right? And that's not taking away from Marcus Freeman. That's adding to Marcus Freeman because he's the one that went out and got those guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so you're seeing where Ryan, and when we get to the offense, we're going to talk about some red zone stuff that I didn't like. And, but there's still a lot I did like. But what you're seeing is in an offense that has just been steadily going like this for a while now, guys. And a defense that, like, is just here, just week after. I don't know that I've ever seen a Notre Dame defense play this elite, this consistently, and since, I mean, like, what, 89, 88? I mean, seriously. Even the 2012 team had the pit game. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, guys, it's been unreal to see this. But this is why you go out and pay all the money you pay for Mike Denbrock and Al Golden. Sean. Yeah. That's why you make that move.
Absolutely. All right, boys. That's going to do it for our first looks at this game, our look back, our big picture stuff. We're going to jump right into this thing, man. We're going to talk offense. We're going to talk defense. We're going to get into the nitty gritty, if you will. But before we do, make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell, share with your family and friends. And, of course, jump on the boards.irishbreakdown.com. That is where you find all of the good stuff. You'll have some film breakdowns on there, great discussion, all kinds of good stuff. So make sure you jump over on the boards. Best product your money can buy. And the holidays are coming up. Be a good gift. Just throwing it out there.
Can I also say, before we get to the next part, to make this day even better, as I got to watch the women's basketball team absolutely just dominate USC for 4 quarters.
We could do a whole show on that.
Did they trail at all after early in the first quarter?
No.
Did they trail at all?
They didn't trail in the first quarter, I don't think, either, did they?
It was 14-6 when I turned it on, so I don't know if they were down like 2-0 or what I mean?
They were up. They scored the first 4 points of the game.
They cut it to 3, and then they just answered right back, and it was never competitive after that. I'm like, and I'm hearing the announcers like, well, USC's young. And I'm like, yeah, Notre Dame's missing the Big East Player of the Year in Carlin and Maddie Westbeld, who's going to get drafted. You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, this is a good day, guys. It's a pretty good day.
Yeah,
it's a pretty good day.
Yeah, if you're a Notre Dame fan, it's a great day.
USC was for those who don't follow women's basketball, USC is ranked number 3, and they have arguably the best player in the country on their team,
who they made look very average, by the way.
Yeah. So, what's great was Sonia they just said, hey, Sonia, you're not going to score a whole lot today. Your job is to make life miserable for Juju. And that's exactly what she did.
Well,
but this isn't a women's basketball post-game show. Okay. We'll get into that, Vince. You can say what I don't want to go down that road, but like, this was a great performance. Yeah. I mean, just a great day for Notre Dame, guys. Just a great day. Cause I got to watch that. And then I got to watch the football team. You got A&M coming back. They just took the lead against Auburn and they got the ball. So,
yeah, life is good right now. There,
pretty good day
in that regard. But speaking of good days, let's talk about this Notre Dame offense, Brian and boys. Look, Notre Dame's offense, 448 yards of total offense. 214 pass yards, 234 yards on the ground, and look, Notre Dame averaged 6.2 yards per carry. Jeremiah Love 8.6, Jadarian Price 7.3. I mean, look, Notre Dame was just balling out on the ground. The Army didn't really have an answer for what Notre Dame was trying to do on the ground. They just kind of dominated the trenches. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, the whole time I'm watching Notre Dame on offense, they're pretty much doing whatever they wanted to do. If they wanted to run the ball, they ran the ball. If they wanted to throw a little play action, they did that. If they wanted to do some RPOs, they did that. Yeah. They wanted to throw the ball down the field, they did that. Like Notre Dame's offense was a pick your poison kind of a situation tonight, and they executed extremely well in this. I believe Riley Leonard was perfect for passing until like 1:05 left to go in the first half.
Yeah, he completed his first 8, right?
Yeah, he missed the touchdown throw, what could have been a touchdown throw, and then he threw one into the dirt. So he had 2 incompletions in the first half. But look, this was a dominating performance by the offense. I'll start here. 10 drives, 7 touchdowns, 2 missed field goals. We'll talk about that later. And then 1 turnover on downs at the goal line. Those are their 10 drives.
Well, I refuse to. I'm not talking about field goal kicking tonight. I refuse.
That's totally fine. We kind of already covered that. So, boys, let's talk offense. Your thoughts on the offense as a whole, and then we'll jump into some individual stuff. Sean, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, I kind of talked about it in the overall view of the matchup. Look, the offensive line was probably their best performance tonight. Definitely their best performance. Riley Leonard, just, you know what, man, I think I've gotten to the point where looking at this team offensively, they are really hard to defend. And I know a lot of people would like them to possibly have a dominant wide receiver or, you know, more passes to the tight ends or more of this and more of that. Like, really, from a defensive coordinator standpoint, this is a really difficult offense to get a handle on week to week, right? And I think, you know, I'll play advocate because I know, you know, some of you guys are going to point out, you know, the red zone stuff. But, you know, I just really think at that point, it's like, man, I don't even want to go to this part of the playbook. I could call play action to the tight end since they're just recklessly coming off the edge. I could do that, but I'll just say that for USC, it's like, yo, either we're going to dominate and get the ball in the end zone or we're not. It's like to that point now as a coordinator, right? It's the same thing with Marcus Freeman. Like, he's like, go for it. Or, man, you know what? On this 3rd and 7, just run the ball. I want to give our field goal kicker an opportunity. I mean, this is literally the type of things they were like going through their thought process tonight. And once again, you know, you face an opponent where I feel like this team felt like offensively and defensively, this team really can't hurt us. There's really nothing they could do with us. So we're just going to go. But see, this is the thing. We've seen that before. We've felt that before. Like, you know, Notre Dame should be able to go out, dominate this team, and then we look up in the 3rd quarter and it's a game. And it's like, yo, why is this game so close? And now, like for consecutive weeks for a stretch, this team, you know, as I think Brian and Ryan pointed out, they take on the attitude of their leader, the angst, you know, the conversation before the game. Like, what do you want your team to do? I want them to play violent. Like, okay, all right, Marcus. You know, like that's what you told your squad, and that's exactly what they came out and did. But they've been doing that. They've been a very fast and violent football team. And so I would like to say, you know, if this offensive line can continue to go in this direction, this team offensively is going to be very dangerous, right? Because I think they have so many things to pull from that they can go through. And I think from an efficiency standpoint, they're starting to acquire what we've seen the defense do all year, which is the defense has loved playing with each other all year. I think now you start to see this offensive side grabbing hold to that same type of energy, and they love playing together. And they're starting to find what they do. Everybody knows their role, and they're starting to work hard to make sure that they're operating at the best of their abilities in that role. You know, and It's really fun to watch because normally I am a type of guy this year that I can't wait for the defense to get on the field. I want to watch this defense play. And now I'm really enjoying watching this offense play because I think we're starting to see the different layers and the different talents and the different weapons that they have really come to the forefront. And I think they could have done more tonight. I just think they were kind of nice. I think they were kind of nice to Army in the second half. Like, you know what?
They took Riley Leonard out with like 3 or 4 minutes in the third quarter. Like he was out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that was the definition.
Riley Leonard only threw for 148 yards.
Yeah. He played 2.5 quarters. Like,
Sean, I was watching Remember the Titans the other night, and it's on Disney Plus actually. So I was watching that the other night, and I remember that scene when I think it was when they were practicing at Gettysburg. There's that scene kind of, I think it's like in the woods where it's Julius and Bertier, and and there's that quote that it's one of my favorite quotes. He goes, "Attitude reflects leadership."
Right.
And, you know, we talk a lot about Marcus Freeman's, but the swaggiest guy on the staff might be Mike Denbrock, as far as just like a cocky, confident, just like talking.
He's super cocky.
He's a 60-something-year-old dude, and he puts his hat on backwards when he gets pissed off at practice and just lays into some people, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we're sitting there at that one, I think it was a spring practice, and they throw a bomb, and it goes for a touchdown, and the players are talking trash. And he's like, get back in the huddle. That's what we do here. You know what I mean? And it took some time to really get that from this group because of how young they were, because Riley missed the spring, and they just weren't clicking. I don't think he necessarily knew how to use all of his weapons just yet. But that's what you're seeing from the offense too, guys, is this is a far more confident football team. And it's because they'll go out and beat Virginia 35-14, and Mike Denbrock's pissed after the game. And they'll go out and beat Virginia 52-3, and Mike Denbrock's pissed after the game. And that's just the kind of – and Chip Long was a little bit of this way. But Mike's got a little different ability to relate to players than maybe what Chip had. But that's the thing is the offense is – like the defense is not clicking. They've just kind of been this way since week 2. You know what I mean? But the offense is the one that's starting to click, fellas. And the thing I loved about talk about just big picture, Vince, of the offense – it wasn't until Riley Leonard's Sean, you were the one that talked about how they like playing together, right? It wasn't until Riley Leonard's 6th pass attempt that he threw to a receiver for the second time. I mean, so first drive, he goes, you run inside zone to Jeremiah Love. And I'll say this was the first game I thought this was the best the best job we've seen of Mike Denbrock to use an inside-out performance, use your physicality up the middle and then your athleticism on the perimeter. You go inside zone for 13 first play. Then you run a little quick pivot route to Bo Collins. Then you run an RPO hitch route in the slot to Jaden Greathouse. Then you go inside zone for 9 yards, and then you run a post-corner route for a 28-yard touchdown to Jordan Faison. And it was great to go at what Navy was doing. Navy plays a lot of off coverage, and Ryan, I'm sure because, you know, in your NFL draft stuff last year, you probably watched a little bit of the Army LSU game last year, and LSU plays a lot of off coverage. There was stuff Denbrock was doing. He was queuing up the play stuff. He was queuing up some stuff he did last year with LSU, where when they're off, we're going to attack them with deep stops. The post I think it was Malik Neighbors smoked an Army DB on the exact same route that Jordan Faison smoked an Army DB, an outside corner post or post corner. You know, just hitting those little, RPO quick throws to just get them going. And there was just nothing an Army could do. So if you load the box, they're going to pull and throw it outside. If you play outside and try to play the space, they're going to run it up the middle because you can't. I mean, there was literally nothing Army could do, guys. Right. And then the one time they tried to bring a blitz, Jeremiah Love had a great blitz pickup on it on the 28-yard touchdown pass.
They tried
to bring a blitz.
They brought 7 guys on
Love,
that.
Yeah, and Jeremiah Love steps up and picks it up. Riley steps up, throws an absolute dime. Great timing. I mean, Faison was hitting the top of his route, and the ball was coming out.
Yeah.
And you're just like, this is how they're going to start this game? Army's done, fellas. Like I'm not saying that like arrogantly. I'm just like, as a coach, sometimes you're in a game, and you're just like, dude, we're feeling really good right now. We're about to roll this team. And then when they came out in the second drive, and they go they get the short field and put it in right away. And I loved that slide screen. That was the best red zone call that Mike Denbrock had all game was that little, I'll get there, that little slide screen to Jeremiah Love as Todd Blackledge had to talk to us like we were idiots on how you might think that was why is he blocked. No one's thinking that, Todd. We all understand the rules. You know what I mean?
No one's thinking that.
But you just kind of felt like Denbrock was feeling good come this game, guys. Like I said, we'll get to the red zone stuff here in a little bit, but you could just tell he felt he knew exactly how to go at this defense. This is a defense he faced last year, same D coordinator. They're a better version of last year.
Sure.
But schematically, he knew exactly how to get at this football team. And just mixing up some of the looks and gashing them with 12 personnel, gashing them with 11 stuff where they were spreading them out. He was feeling really good about this game. We saw some counter, and they were ripping them up with outside zone in this game, guys. Normally, Notre Dame doesn't get into their outside zone stuff because Notre Dame's outside zone is a little bit more of an off-tackle play than it is like a stretch play. And that's what Love's first rushing touchdown was off of an outside zone run. They hit that a couple times where Army's crashing inside. They're hitting the outside zone, getting outside of that inside hard crash, and then just cutting it up. And so I felt like this was one of those games where Denbrock was just like one step ahead of their D coordinator the whole game. And I think that experience against this defense last year, kind of helped out a little bit, if we're being honest. And if they didn't have a couple mistakes, they would have scored about as many as Jaden Daniels' offense did against Army last year, too. They won 62-0 against a much worse version of Army.
Ryan, thoughts on the offense overall, big picture stuff?
Man, big picture stuff. Notre Dame is way faster than them, like just so much faster. I mean, that is the most basic take of all time, but it is also, I think Todd Blackledge did say this, and I literally turned to my wife, Caitlin, after Jeremiah Love's first run, which was for 10 yards or 11 yards or something. I'm just like, dude, they haven't seen explosiveness like that all
even
year.
from the offensive line, like explosiveness. Like they just,
off the line of scrimmage. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I don't think that they saw the explosiveness off the line like this, because again, Army's a good team, and they were averaging to let up like 10.3 points per game coming into the game, right? Like they were handling everybody. But when you look at their schedule, there is nobody that has the speed and talent that Notre Dame has. Like just none of it, right? So it was like the first run or two, I'm just like, okay, yeah, like Jeremiah Love looks fast, right? Jeremiah Love looks fast. Then Riley Leonard had that one. I think it was just a quarterback draw at one point. I'm just like, yeah, they haven't seen a quarterback that runs that fast. Then you saw Jadarian Price. You're just like, yep, they haven't seen a second running back that fast. Like they just
and Ryan, there was that one drop 8 that they did, and Riley just kind of casually.
That's what I think. That's what I'm talking about, right? On the draw,
scramble. It was like they dropped 8. The second one was the draw. You were right on the draw. I'm talking about the first one. It was a pass. They dropped 8, and he steps into the pocket and takes off running, and he's just kind of like running 3/4 speed, for 13 yards. You know what I mean? It was wild.
You even think about like the 58-yard touchdown run by Aeneas Williams at the end of the game, right? Where you're just kind of like, Aeneas is probably their 4th most explosive running back, right? And you're like, dude, like he's just so much faster than everybody on that defense. Like it's wild to think about, right? So, I mean, you had the athleticism advantage, obviously. I thought the first drive was masterfully called by Mike Denbrock, which kind of just really set the table because, again, we're talking about young men who are emotional, who do get into the funks of things are going well or the highs of things are going really well. And when they feel like everything's clicking, they all buy in, and everybody bought in and to their role tonight. I mean, there wasn't a wide receiver that had gaudy numbers tonight, but like you saw the energy, right? You saw the enthusiasm, even though Jeremiah Love ran for 130 yards. He only had 7 carries in this game, right? But like, who cares, right? Like everything was just working. Everything was going. I mean, he's averaging 19 yards a carry, right? So like that works, but it's just, it was one of those games where you saw the enthusiasm, you saw the explosiveness, you saw the athleticism advantage. I mean, it kind of reminded me a little bit, a different game, but like the Ohio State game, Indiana game, if you guys saw that one earlier, beautifully called by Indiana early in the game, but then you saw the athleticism advantage, right? It's just like, okay, yeah, they just have a talent gap here. Notre Dame had a clear talent gap. I think that Army, again, is a very well-coached team. I think they're very disciplined defensively, especially, but like at the end of the day, they just haven't seen athleticism like Jeremiah Love, like Riley Leonard, like Jadarian Price. Like that was the difference in the football game. And I think why they were so confident early was that they had a couple explosives pretty early on in the game. And they're like, oh yeah, we're the more talented team here. Like there's no doubt about it.
All right, let's jump into some position specific. Let's start with the big boys because I do agree with Sean on this one. I think this was their most dominant, game of the year. And again, I reserve a little bit of judgment when we go back and look at the film and things like that. But it just felt like there was just a different kind of explosion from these guys. There was a different amount of just assignment correctness, and then not only correctness, but just assignment domination. I mean, they were getting to the second level and then pancaking linebackers. Like they were just dominant. The front was dominant tonight. And the only time that Riley Leonard, when he would drop back to pass, had any pressure on him whatsoever is when they let a free guy come through.
Yeah,
miscommunication.
That was the one blatant.
Yes.
Okay, clearly somebody screwed up.
Right.
Because like the one there, the goal line, they just had too many guys. Notre Dame didn't have enough guys to block them all.
Right, 100%. But I mean, it was just what appeared to me to be a very dominant performance by the offensive line. Brian, I'll throw it to you first on this one. Offensive line thoughts, before we watch the film.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was game copy, but I went back and was kind of, once I got a big lead, I was kind of going back and watching some of those runs because I got the TV on watching the one, and I got my iPad kind of going back, and it was, I mean, it was, they were pushing Army off the ball, and the misconception a lot of people had about this Army team is that they're like a typical service academy where they're undersized. This is not a small Army football team. This is a big physical Army football team that's got 280, 290 pounders on their D line. Their offensive line averages over 306 pounds. And Notre Dame pushed them around. But there was a level of physicality that we saw in this game. But here's the thing, though, Vince, and you talked about it. It wasn't just physicality. It was the ability to execute the run plays at a high level. I mean, just the timing of the getting off the double teams and getting the linebackers. Just watch the 12-yard touchdown run by Jeremiah Love is a perfect example. They get a really good stretch for width, and then Billy Schrauth just comes off to the linebacker and just gets a body on him, and then Jeremiah Love does the rest. He made a great cut on that. And it just was all night. It just was that timing of getting that push, come off and get to that next level guy. And that's what I'm saying is like, yes, Jeremiah Love is a phenomenal player. Aeneas Williams is a really talented player, but like they weren't getting touched on those runs. Now, part of that's because of how explosive Jeremiah Love is, right? Like I understand that, but it's like, but you're not getting touched because of how just physical this offensive line is and how assignment correct they were. And I thought this was one of Jeremiah's more patient games because again, he was running some of the stretch outside zone type of stuff. His second touchdown run, I believe, was just pure inside zone, but I thought he just was patient, and then just exploded through the hole. But the holes weren't like little this time, guys. Like all year, Jeremiah and Jadari have been getting to these like little tiny holes. And I mean, it's not an insult. It's like they're getting a body on a body. That's what we've been talking about this line all year, guys. Get a body on a body, get a body on a body. Tonight, it wasn't just getting a body on a body. It was getting a body on a body with force.
Yes, with intention, with bad intentions.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean?
And it was the tight ends were, I thought, from what that's the one I'm going to have to go back and watch. But from what I could see, we're blocking well in the non-red zone situations. And the stuff that Army did in the red zone, they couldn't do out on the field. It's like I was talking to Angela, and she's like, like just the running up the middle stuff, they're just getting stopped. And I was like, yeah, in the goal line, because Army was just getting low and getting under there, just getting and just going low and just kind of taking their legs out. You can't do that at the 40, because they're just going to go. And that was the thing that you looked at and said, it was just a physical performance. And honestly, the one player I want to call out specifically individually, I thought Billy Schrauth was awful last week. Awful. He dominated tonight. Like he was so good. I was going back and watching some of his plays during the game, Vince. So that again shows a mindset, and I got to give him and Joe Rudolph a lot of credit for that because they could have just crushed him all week for how bad he was. I mean, guys, he was bad last week, and for him to come out and have what I believe was his best performance of the season, it just shows where this team is, guys. It's like, okay, you had a crappy week, so what are you going to do about it? I'm going to come out there and just make Army pay for it. It's what I'm going to do. And he did. And the left side of the line as a duo was really good. But Billy Schrauth was excellent tonight. And I'm not saying he was the only one, but I want to point him out because of how critical I was of him last week and how bad he played last week. To see him bounce back and play the way he did this week, fellas, says a lot about him. It says a lot about the preparation that he got this week from Joe Rudolph and the offensive coaches. But just the way this unit came together, because I thought Emil struggled last week, and I thought from what I could tell, he looked like he was much better this week. Anthony Knapp did what he's kind of done all year. My beef with him is more pass pro tonight. Run game wise, him and Strouth were just excellent. And and Coogan was okay. But he battled his butt off. He battled his butt off. But this was a truly dominant performance when you got guys running through the holes and they're not getting touched against a team that was giving up. Look, guys, I don't care what level of ball you play at. When you're 9 games into the season and you're only giving up 85 yards rushing per game, you got a pretty good freaking run defense. I don't care about. I haven't seen that. Nobody. Every team that Notre Dame's going to play in the playoffs will not have seen a running back room that's got the explosiveness of the Notre Dame guys. That's just facts, and so that's going to be true of everybody. But they were great tonight. And I've been hard on that group all year. I've been hard on Joe Rudolph all year. Tonight was an outstanding performance. Okay, Army's not good. Okay, fine. They are, but let's just grant your premise. They did exactly what a great offense is supposed to do to an inferior opponent. They were physical. They executed at a high level, and they dominated. And guys, they could have hung 400 yards rushing on them if they wanted to. I mean, they could have. If they want to just come out and run it down Army's throat and run for 400 yards, they could have. They had 273 rushing yards, fellas, on 29 carries. And one of those carries was a taking a knee play.
That's true. That's true.
In real situations, they had 28 carries for 275 yards against a team that was giving up 85 yards per game. The most they had given up all season was 177 in the first game. The second most they gave up all year was 159. See, 6 of their 9 opponents were held to less than 90 rushing yards, and 3 of their opponents were held to less than 50. Let me say this. Army's defense in 9 games gave up 743 rushing yards in 9 games, 3.2 per carry. Notre Dame had 273 in 1 game against them. That's awesome. And the offensive line was the driver of that.
Yep. Well, I mean, I keep my analysis as easy as possible on the offensive line. Why did everything look so easy tonight? It's because the offensive line played well. I mean, that's a big part of it, right? Like, honestly, why did Riley Leonard look cool and collected as a passer tonight? It's because he wasn't touched, right?
Yeah.
Pass protection was good. Why is Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love look so explosive? It's because they weren't getting touched until X amount of yards down the field. And E.S. Williams did the same on his long touchdown run. Blackledge literally joked about it that Aeneas Williams was touched at the 1 yard line from a guy. That was the first time he was touched on that play pretty much. Right. And that's what it is. The offensive line is going to make everything look cohesive and like a unit ultimately. Right. Because we know Notre Dame has talented, basic level again, right? Quarterbacks look a lot more confident, a lot more cool, calm, and collected when there's nobody in their face and nobody hitting them. That's easy, right? Wide receivers are getting open because said quarterback has more time to throw the football and it isn't rushed, his process. Running backs look really good when they don't have to do a lot of dancing in the backfield off of initial contact and have to make guys miss in really tight quarters. That stuff is really basic. So the offensive line is the big reason why the offense in general looks so cohesive and so on schedule tonight, because the offensive line was doing their job up front.
Anything to add, Sean?
No, I mean, that's pretty much spot on from both of these guys. But I will say, moving forward, you can't complain about the performance last week of the offensive line and then turn around and not give them credit for what they did, because it was 2 bad teams either way. If you're going to look at it that way, it's 2 inferior teams that they face, and now they dominate. So you have to say, like Ryan said, it starts right there, right? That's the core of it, of offensive and defensive performance in the trenches. And when the trenches are performing efficiently, everybody's going to look good. They're going to make everybody look good. And that's what happened tonight. And so now you get an opportunity where I gain more confidence about next week tonight, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now going into next week, I feel like this offensive line, I want to see this offensive line show it to me 2 weeks in a row now. Give it to me 2 weeks in a row. And then go into the playoffs and let's see what we can do. But you have to be excited about it and give Joe Rudolph credit. for the way his guys played tonight. Absolutely.
Ryan, I'm going to give you first crack at skill positions for the offense. You can go with that whichever direction you want. You can start quarterback. You can go wide receiver. You can go running backs. You can do whatever you need to do, man. But skill positions were pretty impressive tonight overall as well. I mean, what part of the offense wasn't? But go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I think it looked easy for the most part with athletes in space tonight and athletes just with the football in their hands because, again, it works off the offensive line. But I think overall, wide receivers got as much separation as I have seen all season. It looked like they were running crisp routes. It looks like they were creating some instant separation. I thought it was a well-called game just in general by Coach Denbrock and obviously getting those guys open because that's obviously a part of this conversation as well. We've already talked about the running backs with their ability to create explosive plays. Quarterback, I mean, outside of that one miss in the end zone, I thought Riley was cool, calm, and collected and on time for the most part, right? Which is great. So I think that this was probably the most complete game we've seen of the offensive skill position just overall. And I think it was great because what did we talk about Brian, I think we had this conversation last week on the show where I said, like, it's great that like X player is stepping up, but also it's partly because Y player is not playing well, right? Tonight, I didn't have that instance where I'm like, oh, Bo dropped a couple passes. Jordan Faison didn't come to play. Player X didn't show up today. He dropped a pass. Like, everybody made the plays that were out there and they made the plays to best of their ability. And this was one of the few games because there's been a couple of games where it's like, 7 players made a catch where I'm just like, I don't know if that was necessarily the best thing though, right? Because it's just like one player isn't stepping up enough. This was another game where like, at least in the first half, they said there was 7 guys that had caught a pass for Notre Dame. And I felt like this was that fundamental game that we always talk about with complementary football, but I felt like this was actually complementary football tonight because everyone was making good plays, right? It's like Bo had that 15-yard catch at some point in this football game. Jordan Faison obviously had the big touchdown catch. Jaden Greathouse had a couple receptions in this game. Jeremiah Love caught the touchdown catch in this game. Like, it felt like everybody made the plays that they should have made and were a part of the machine, right? And it felt like it all made sense together. And it was all because everybody had a hand in it and everybody made a play rather than one player having to step up because that player did not make enough plays or that player was not having a good game. So I thought that this was the most well-rounded performance we've seen of a skill position for the most part. Outside of one miss, Riley Leonard was good. The running backs were phenomenal. The wide receivers were getting separation. The tight ends blocked well seemingly. And, I would love them to be more involved in the passing game, but like the one pass I saw to Mitchell Evans, he caught. So like, that's cool, right? So I felt like everybody was a part of the machine. So
Sean, what do you think? Skill
positions were great. I saw separation from the wide receivers. Like you said, he missed a great one in the end zone. That was a great route. The first touchdown by Jordan Faison was a great route. And, hitting Mitchell on the off coverage, Bo Collins, he caught the ball multiple times from both quarterbacks. That was good to see tonight. And then, the play action to Mitchell Evans down the left sideline. And I think Steve missed. Was that Cooper he missed?
Yeah.
Open in the end zone.
Yeah. So
for the most part, guys were open. They were getting open tonight. But it once again plays off of protection, the run game, and then, Army just playing zone. And it was funny. I think on the first drive, the broadcast did mention on the Faison touchdown, like Army decided to blitz. It was almost like quickly they figured out like, all right, we can't sit back in our zone. We actually have to do something, and that allowed Notre Dame to pop them for that touchdown. So you look at the skill position players, and like Ryan said, we've had multiple games where they've had 5 or 6 guys with receptions, but I still say, Faison coming back being healthy is a plus, but Jaden Greathouse is, if he can be that guy, right? Because Riley should have hit him tonight. He should have had a touchdown pass. And I think he had a couple other receptions. Well, I don't know. Remember what his stat? He had 1 reception. I know he had. No, they look good. They look so much better as a unit because they're playing better as a unit collectively. I really think that's what it is. It's almost like the line is making the quarterback look better. The wide receivers are making the quarterback look better, getting open, and then the running backs are just helping everybody out with the way they come out and dominate week to week. So, yeah, I definitely think this was one of their better games. I would be hard pressed. I'm trying to think. I would be hard pressed to find a game. They might have had a game with better statistics, but
Purdue,
for Purdue, yeah.
But
yeah, it's one of their better games.
Chris Mitchell even had an explosive play tonight, which I've been like dying to see at some point, right? So everybody had a hand tonight. Everybody had a hand.
Hit it, Brian.
Look, the only thing I'll say is I felt like the last couple games, Riley Leonard's reading of the defense was not great. I thought he was late getting the ball. I mean, I thought I think we said it last week. He threw with authority. He threw the ball with confidence, but he was late a lot and he wasn't making good reads. Today, I thought he was really sharp. He had to miss the great house, but like it was the right read and the timing was there. The throw to Faison. I mean, he's cocking back and throwing as Faison's getting the top of his route, not waiting until he's out of the break. So I thought that was something that I was happy to see, guys. I thought that was a good part of what we saw to kind of get him back on track mentally. Like I said, he's been slinging it with confidence for a while now. But just because you're slinging it with confidence doesn't mean you're processing well. And I thought he processed well tonight. The only thing that I'll add to the conversation, because you guys nailed the skill positions, is number one, there's not a backfield in the country that I would trade for this group, as a top to bottom group, number one. But number two, the receiver versus DB matchup was the one talent mismatch. The bigger, like Army's front seven is actually pretty good for that group of five level. Like it's a really good group of five front seven. Where they were far inferior was in the secondary. And the interesting thing is Notre Dame didn't really exploit that the way they could have because they didn't need to.
Yeah.
I mean, they only attempted 18 passes, but when they did, they were dominant. Like this is the first time in a while that the Notre Dame receiving corps played an inferior group and made them look inferior.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was a positive. Now they could, if Mike Denbrock wanted to, they could have gone out there and thrown for 350 yards today. Like easily. I mean, they went, Riley Leonard played 2.5 quarters. He went 10 of 13. One of those incompletions was a throwaway. Correct. He was just trying to get rid of the ball as he was getting sacked.
He dirted it, as I think they called it. Yeah.
And for 148 yards and basically played like one series of the second quarter, two series of the second quarter or third quarter. I mean, so that was the thing I like to see is yes, Army's secondary is very inferior to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame receivers made them look inferior, and that was good to see. But yeah, this is a really. I'm someone who likes the ball to get spread around, but to these guys' point, it's spread around for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Not spread around because someone's struggling. And so you've got to, let's try this. Let's try that. It allowed Riley to, like when they were making some early catches, I felt like that allowed Riley to just be like, dude, just make the read and get the ball. You don't have to worry about who's dropping it, who's playing well today. Just everybody's getting open. Just read the defense and get the ball where it needs to get to. And he played like a guy that just felt no matter who was out there, they were going to get open, and it allowed him to dominate.
Can I say one thing too, Vince, real quick? That I feel like we could spend a long time talking about Jadarian Price, and we could spend a long time talking about Jordan Faison, and we could talk about Jaden Greathouse, obviously. And I agree. I think Sean, I think we kind of see this one pretty similarly. I'm a big believer that like. If this Notre Dame passing offense is going to be good enough to potentially win a championship down the stretch, I think Jaden Greathouse is a very important cog to that machine, like hugely important. I will say this, though, and we don't have to have a deep conversation about this. Maybe this could be something during the week or that type of conversation, but I have never seen an athlete at the running back position at the University of Notre Dame like Jeremiah Love. Just haven't seen it. I just haven't. I saw Julius Jones. I remember Julius Jones. I don't remember Ricky Waters for Notre Dame. I remember him for San Francisco and the Eagles and that type of thing, right? I have never seen an athlete like this, guys. The hurdle that he had going into the end zone was one of the most ridiculous things.
He cleared that kid by like 2 feet. Like it wasn't even close and landed on his feet.
It was wild. And then the long touchdown run he has, like it was well blocked and he wasn't touched. But like a big reason that he wasn't touched is that his 0 to 100 is insane how quickly he gets up to top speed. Like it's absolutely incredible. So I think, just a momentary shout out to Jeremiah Love, because again, I Notre Dame fans like appreciate him while you can, because after the 2025 season, I don't think we're going to be seeing him much
whatever
longer.
This year and then next year, and enjoy it, fellas. Let me say this, Ryan, because Sean and I are a little bit older, and I think Sean's going to agree with me on this. But if you don't, Sean, push. We've seen faster backs than Jeremiah, but we've never seen anyone that's got the easy speed that he has. Ricky is the closest thing to him. But like, because Ricky just had a similar level of smoothness and elusiveness and like similar body type. But Jeremiah is a lot more explosive than what Ricky was. I'll say a lot. He's more explosive than what Ricky was. Like Ricky was Ricky was Jeremiah without the truly elite speed. Mm-hmm. I mean, because Ryan, you saw that in the NFL, I'm sure. He was a great running back and he was really athletic and dynamic and strong, but he wasn't like Chris Johnson speed or, that kind of thing. He had good speed. Jeremiah has elite speed. That's the closest we've seen. Because like Julius Jones might have been faster before his injury than Jeremiah, maybe by a step, but he was a tight hipped downhill, like power runner with speed.
Like an outside zone type runner.
Josh Adams maybe was a step faster when he was up, maybe, or as fast, but Josh was a one cut, not making anybody miss kind of guy. Dexter was as smooth as Jeremiah is, but he wasn't nearly as explosive or as fast as Jeremiah. I mean, so that's the thing is like there have been guys that have had a trait. Randy Kinder was every bit as explosive as Jeremiah is, but he didn't have he was, again, another tight-hipped guy that wasn't overly elusive. And so there have been some guys that were great at a certain aspect of it. What makes Jeremiah so unique, Ryan, for I think me and Sean, tell me if you agree, because we can go back to the Holtz days, is he has it all. He's strong. He is fast. He is smooth. He is elusive. I mean, he can really athletically do it all. And the biggest surprise to me, Ryan, is this is a kid that has shown an ability as a 205-pound sophomore to say, I need 3. Cool. I'm going to run over everyone and get 4. Right? Yeah. Like, that's what I don't know that I knew he was going to have, especially this early. Right? Like, Ryan, you and I, are either of us surprised that he's an explosive running back? No, we knew he was going to be that. It's how quickly he has also become willing to just say, like, did you guys see the run last week where it was like 3rd and 3, and he basically just ran over his own lineman because he's like, I'm getting to the sticks. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I didn't know he was going to have. And when you add that to the athletic package that Ryan's talking about, that's what makes him a special back. I say, with all due respect to any other back, when you give me the fact that Kedron Young can't get on the field right now, well, he could, but like right now he's taking a red shirt. But the fact that he isn't being forced onto the field just speaks volumes about how good this running back room is.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't trade it for anybody, especially the way they're playing now. Because like,
go
ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, he's the type of athlete. You remember, obviously, Ezekiel Elliott's run down the stretch, like the championship for Ohio State. Like, he's that type of kid, in my opinion, where I'm not going to say, like, Zeke was a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, and it was a little bit of a different time, even though it wasn't that long into the past, right? But, like, he is that type of guy, though, that if Notre Dame has championship aspirations, I mentioned, obviously, what Jaden Greathouse could be for this passing offense, but this could be, like, one of those kids that, like, nationally just takes everybody off guard because he's busting off 60+ yard touchdowns in like the biggest moments at times, right? Like I just haven't seen it. Like, I've seen some really good backs at Notre Dame, right? Like Aldrick was a great back. Kyron Williams was a great back. You go back and, Josh Adams was a good back, and there's been some really good backs. Darius Walker was a good back. Like, there's been some good ones, man. CJ Procyse for that year. Like, there's been some good ones, but I just have never seen a guy as athletically gifted as Jeremiah Love. Because I remember talking to him as a recruit where he said, like, I can go play corner and I'll be the best corner on the team. And at first you're just like, haha, funny, man. But like, I'm sitting back and I'm just thinking, after watching him hurdle a guy where he probably went 7 feet in the air, where I'm just like, he probably could. Like, all due respect to Christian Gray, who's phenomenal. I think he's one of the better corners in college football. Jeremiah Love might be a better corner than him. Like, who knows? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. He's that type of athlete.
Wouldn't put anything past him at this point in time, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing, too, guys. In the last 4 games, Jeremiah Love has rushed for 388 yards because he only had 19 yards on 9 carries against Florida State, which, again, speaks volumes about how good they are, because that was the game where Florida State was focused on stopping him. So Jadarian's like, I got you, right? But in the last 4 games, he's rushed for 388 yards. He's averaged 8.1 yards per carry because, to your point, right, if they're going to win a championship, they got 5 more games left, fellas. So you want to know, why doesn't Jeremiah run the ball more? Because you don't need him to run the ball more. Because you do have Jadarian. You do have Aeneas. You do have Kedron. If you do have Riley as a runner. So there's no need to have him run the ball 20 times a game and get those 250 yards that he could have easily gone out there tonight and ran for 250 yards on 15 carries. But why? And that's the great thing about it, is he's got 388 yards in the last 4 games. and they've all been blowouts. So he hasn't played in the fourth. He didn't play in the fourth quarter tonight. Did he didn't carry the ball after his third quarter touchdown run, right? He was done after that.
So. I don't think so.
He played basically 2 quarters of football essentially. But that's why you don't need to, because there might be some games, Ryan, in the playoff where you're going to need him to have 20 touches, and you don't want him having heavy legs when you get to that point in time. And then to see Jadarian, I mean, here's the crazy thing: the most impressive run of the night might have been Jadarian's 12-yard touchdown run, where he ran up the middle and it's like he's going down, and then he just breaks out and pop. Like, that's how crazy. And then you put an Aeneas in there, and then he pops one.
Yeah.
Like, that's how crazy this room is.
And he might be, and here's a statement. This is a crazy statement. Aeneas Williams might be the most nuanced runner of the three, in the sense of he has a really good understanding of space, man. Like, that run, that subtle cuts to the left. I didn't even see that defender coming, where he kind of made a miss in tight quarters. And it's like the natural ability as a runner that he has. He feels like Kyron in a more explosive body, in the sense of Kyron just had an innate feel of space, man. Like, he just made guys miss on the second level so well. Aeneas is gonna be a good one too, man. It's gonna be different, but Aeneas is gonna be a good one as well.
And it's something, they all have this one factor, and that is their versatility and their ability to make people miss. And they all have great vision. I think that's something Dylan McCullough really. I think Nolan James is a great running back with vision, and he has that little one cut, cutback ability. He's probably a little bit closer to in the running back room. I would be interested in who you guys think he's closer to with his skill set. But I just think Jeremiah Love, man, Ricky Waters. Yeah, this is the scary thing, and it goes to what Ryan just pointed out. They're probably using like half of Jeremiah Love's abilities on offense. Half. He could probably return kicks. Dude, he literally could be.
And he can pass.
Yes.
If they wanted to, he could catch 5-6 balls a game. If they wanted him to.
Yes.
If they wanted him.
Yes. So that just goes to show how dynamic he is.
He ran 10.5 in the 100-meter in high school, and he wasn't a track runner. Like,
No.
he just went
out and ran
because he just felt like it, right? Like,
I just love the fact that the only live commitment we've had at Irish Breakdown that we got in trouble for was his.
Yeah. Well, we got in trouble for it, but
And
it was great, right?
You guys remember what the fun little thing we were just like, man, just Notre Dame needs more playmakers. They need more explosive guys. And then Jeremiah walks up, taps me on the shoulder, like, I got this. You know what I mean? And then to see him turn out the way he is and has been a lot of fun, guys. But the fact that you have those other guys is why you don't have to ride him right now, because there's something greater in mind than for this team than Jeremiah getting X number of yards and things like that. But he's starting to play at a high level, and he's starting to look so much more natural as a runner. That's the thing too, because like his junior film was great athlete. Let's see what kind of running back he can be. His senior year film was much more like he's looking like a running back now. Do you know the thing I love about Jeremiah too, fellas, is if you actually go back and look at how he's performed this year, his best games have been by and large their biggest games. And that's how he was in high school. Best game of his high school career was in the state championship game in the senior year. He ran for 300 yards. Like, that's kind of how he's been. He's been a money player as well. And they had to come out tonight ready to go against a team. Can I remind folks, do you know how many rushing plays of more than 30 yards that Army allowed all year? Do you guys remember the statistic from the pregame show? Army this year allowed a grand total coming into this game of 0 carries of 30 yards or more and only 1 carry of 20 yards or more in 9 games. And Notre Dame went for over 50 50-yard scores twice. Like, that's impressive.
Was it over 30? Is that what you said?
They had allowed 0 rushes of more than 30 yards all year and only 1 rush of over 20 all year.
Wow. Well, they had 3 rushes over 20 tonight.
Yeah.
So
because Jeremiah had a 21-yarder, right? Early in the first half, and then the 68.
Then you got 68 and a 58. And, according to the stat program for Notre Dame, they do gains of 10 plus on the ground are big plays, and Notre Dame had 10 of those. So, which accounted for 235 yards on the ground.
And
this
was
just in big plays alone.
Best defense in the country and not allowing big plays all season.
Right. So, hey, all I'm going to add to this, fellas, is that it just looked effortless for the offense from a skill position standpoint. Now, a lot of that had to do with the Hogs up front, no doubt about it, but it just looked effortless. I mean, they were running away from guys. They were running wide open. They were doing things in space that they haven't done consistently. We've seen it, but just not as consistently as they did it today. It just looked effortless to me. That's the best word I can come up with for what the offense looked like from a skill position standpoint. It just looked effortless. Whether it was Riley throwing the football, whether it was Steve throwing the football, whether it was one of the 8 receivers catching the football, the running backs, it just looked effortless. They looked like they were all, dialed in, and they were all on the same page, and they were doing what they needed to do. So it just looked effortless to me. So everything you guys said, no doubt about it. My addition to the whole conversation is it just looked effortless tonight. Brian, did you have something before we sign off of offense?
Yeah, I did. I did want to talk about the red zone.
Okay.
issues.
Yeah.
Couple situational football is very important, and I thought Notre Dame tonight was very good in situational football. They went 3 of 5 on third down, 0 for 1 on fourth down. That was the red zone call. But I felt like after the first couple runs, you should have seen what Army was doing. There should have been better communication. Hey, they're just going low and getting up underneath us. We can't drive them off the ball. They're just shooting down low and taking guys' legs out, and they're not getting any kind of push. And I felt like they should have done something where, even something like maybe like a crack with a toss, something that they should have done something that says, hey, you can't just pinch everybody down inside and just kind of go low and root hog in there and do that. That was my one frustration. And I felt like one of the things that Elson did a great job of in this game today was he did a really nice job of spreading Army out and basically saying, if you're going to play closer to the box, and we're just going to pull it and throw it outside. If you spread out, we're going to just run it up the middle. And so they were really pushing him around, but they just were outnumbered from tight end to tight end against that. And then Army was crashing off the edge. And I just felt like there were things they should have gone to in some of those instances. And even the second one where they scored in it wasn't really pretty. They just eventually were able to kind of pop one in there. That would have been my only thing is I would have liked this. And Sean, there may be something to what you said. Maybe it was like Denbrock trying to make a point. Like, hey, I just want to see you guys just bully this team off the line. I get all that. But after the first couple, and it was obvious that they were just pinching, there should have been something, like if they would have run some kind of, toss play or something like that. I mean, that would have given them a chance to at least kind of get outside.
It would have been a walk-in touchdown,
especially if you'd have pitched away from the field corner.
Yeah.
The first Price touchdown was what? Was that a zone?
Yeah.
Outside zone?
Yeah.
I think that was kind of a counter to them crashing inside.
But they were further back.
There,
right. So they're at the 12, so they had a little bit more room to work. But once you got inside the 10 and 5, that's when they were just really reduced.
No. The first one, I thought the first one they were right at the 4 or 5.
No, that was a catch.
He bounced it.
That was a catch.
You're talking about Price, right? For Jadarian Price.
Oh, Price?
Right?
You're talking about the one later in the game?
He had 2, right?
Yeah.
Price had 2 touchdowns runs. The first one when he bounced it. Yeah, they went outside instead of going inside. Yeah. He bounced it outside. I think that's what they should have gone to. That's when they brought around. Actually, that was a great run by Jadarian because Eli Raritan just whiffed on the block.
His 2 touchdown runs completely killed his yards per carry average.
Yeah.
At least his first. I don't know that I've ever seen Jadarian Price score a touchdown this season from that close. He's normally hitting them from way out back. It's like 2-yard touchdown run for Jadarian Price. What's this all about? Yeah. Going into third overtime here in A&M, guys, 41-41.
Yeah.
Well, now they're in 2-point territory, which is the dumbest overtime.
Don't even get me started.
I just want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I thought that was obviously something that and I'm not too worried about it, to be honest with you guys, because they've been a really good red zone team all year. Mm-hmm. And
it's like they got
Army's
conservative.
Got a really good red zone defense.
Yeah, it's just like they got too conservative when they got up to the goal line, and they're just like, hey, my guys can push their guys around, and we'll just run it up the middle, kind of a thing. And look, Army's smart. that, they went low and they just created a big pile, and multiple times Notre Dame couldn't get through the pile. I mean, that it's very elementary football, to be perfectly honest with you. It was very effective for Army in that moment. And look, Notre Dame needed to be a little bit more creative, when they're inside the 5-yard line. That's really what it comes down to. I think this is an anomaly though, as well. I'm 1,000% with you on that.
And
one.
Army's got the number one red zone defense in the country.
For sure.
Like, it's a combination of those two things.
Right.
Like you said.
Right. All right, well, that's going to do it for our offensive breakdown, gentlemen. Thanks for your insights on the offense. Make sure everybody hits that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell, share with your family and friends, and, of course, jump on the boards.irishbreakdown.com for all of your needs when it comes to Notre Dame. There's also going to be some discussion about the women's basketball team over there, I'm guessing, because that was one heck of a performance as well. So jump over on the boards.irishbreakdown.com. All right, boys, let's jump into the defense and what they were able to accomplish today against this Army offense, that was scoring a whole mess of points this season. They weren't allowing hardly anything. They're scoring a bunch, and they are really, really good at what they do. And the Army quarterback was like 8 consecutive games going over 100 yards or whatever the stat was. He's a really good quarterback. But last week he had to run the ball 36 times. This game it took him 32 times to get to 100 yards. I mean, he's a really good quarterback, but look, this Army team was outgunned and outmatched most of the night, and it was fairly obvious, especially on the defensive side of the ball at times. And it continues. I don't want to say it continues to amaze me, because that's not the right terminology that I want to use, but it continues to impress me that every time it looks like there's a glimmer of daylight on the outside for teams running the football, all of a sudden you see 2 to 3 Notre Dame guys just coming down like a heat-seeking missile and knocking them down for either a loss, no gain, or like a gain of a yard. Mm-hmm. I mean, and even the announcers like, oh, he's got speed to the outside. It's a 1-yard gain. It was just a continuation of what Notre Dame has been doing defensively. I just think all season. So, Brian, why don't you lead us off? Big picture thoughts on the defense tonight.
I think the first thing is Mike or Al Golden. I was going to say Mike Elko. I was just looking at Mike Elko. Al Golden basically showed kind of what he's done all year. And he doesn't really care about necessarily dominating you in every phase of the game. He's going to take away what you do best. And I thought they did a masterful job of that, because what Army does best is run right downhill. And he basically said, no, you're not going to do that today. And one of the things they did is they kind of used against Army what a lot of other teams have kind of used against Notre Dame at times. And did a little bit of it against Navy, but they did it much different today, where they were doing a lot of shifting before the snap. Like a lot of shifting before the snap. They'd line up in an odd front and then quickly shift over. And then it was really jacking with Navy's count. And they just really couldn't get kind of on the same page of who's blocking who. I thought that was very smart. And the coverage structure and execution was outstanding. I mean, like, there were play action passes and you're looking at the replays and you're like, there's nobody open. I mean, like, the ability of this defense to be prepared to the point where they could be as physical and downhill as they were against the run, while also being incredibly disciplined against their play action throws, was exceptional. And this is one of those games where maybe it wasn't their game plan, but they certainly executed it from the standpoint of going out there and being able to take away everything that Army wanted to do. And that was a brilliant performance. And at the end of the day, the results speak for themselves. I mean, Army came into this game leading the nation in rushing, and I think it was 334.9 yards per game. Their lowest rushing output of the season was 207 yards against Air Force. They averaged 8 points, which this tied that. They averaged 4.8 yards per carry that game, and that's a team who sees the option every single day. And they averaged 3.6 yards per carry. Their lowest output on the season was 4.6. And they completely shut it down. Army came into this game leading the nation in rushing gains of 20 yards or more with 30. And they played one less game than most teams. And they didn't allow a single play, rushing or passing, of over 20 yards in this game, of 20 yards or more in this game. Longest was a 19-yard run, and I think it was late in the game. a 19-yard run by the quarterback. Not a single play of more than 20 yards. So they were not at all efficient. They needed 58 carries to get to those 207 yards. And it all came down to Al Golden's game plan was you are not going to run the ball downhill on us. You're going to have to try to get outside. And Army tried to run downhill early. If you look at the first series, they ran that quarterback follow, had another quarterback run, and then they ran power, and Notre Dame shut each one of those down. And then they came out their next series. They shifted. They ran a quick pitch that Christian Gray absolutely stuffed. Then they had a sack, and then they ran a dive on. I mean, it's like Army realized real quick that the way that Notre Dame was playing with their front, they were not going to be able to really get downhill. And so they tried to get outside, and that's when you saw the speed take over. And I just thought it was just an outstanding game plan by Al Golden. And I was worried if playing Navy might have hurt Notre Dame a little bit in this game coming in, because they could have a little bit of a sense of some ideas of how Notre Dame wants to play the option. I know that they're different to a degree, but you're going to learn some things. And you'd have thought Notre Dame hadn't played an option team in 5 years, and they had no clue how Notre Dame was going to defend them, the way that the game was executed. I just thought from a coaching and a preparation standpoint, and just, we'll talk about specific players, but like the D-line did a great job of taking on and beating blocks. The secondary was incredibly disciplined. The linebackers were patient yet aggressive. And, and I felt, you guys tell me if you agree with me, I felt the game plan was geared towards, we're going to let the D-line dominate and then just let everybody else run the ball. And I felt like I didn't think they were crashing the linebackers a lot. Like, a lot of times I didn't think they were doing a lot of that stuff. I just thought they were like, hey, if our D-line can dominate the point of attack, then we're going to let our linebackers fly to the ball. And that's exactly what they did.
I just want to, I want to just jump on that one point right there, and then I'll shoot it to you, Sean. I think that Al Golden has generally, what I've noticed anyway, when he's scheming against triple option, he doesn't bring a lot of heat. That's not really what he does from a linebacker depth standpoint. He just puts a bunch of linebackers on the field and just lets them fly to the football. And that's what this defense progressively has gotten even better and better and better at as they've gotten more athletes at the linebacker position, right? I mean, that's basically how you defend the option. They'll get you if you try to bring a bunch of heat, if you try to, blitz and do some different things, the option will get you because they'll take advantage of vacated space. But when you're Notre Dame and you're sitting in what you do and you're allowing the front to not let those guys get to the next level and allowing those linebackers to just come downhill and be athletes, there's not much you can do. I mean, and that's what this defense has done under Al Golden. It's not gimmicky. It's look, this is your responsibility. See ball, get ball. Like that's what you do. And that's essentially what they did outside of like moving the defensive line. And that was obviously all schematic, but they weren't bringing heat because they don't need to, they don't need to. Sean, hit it.
Yeah. You just hit what I was going to talk about.
Sorry, man.
No, but that's a great point because, if you're going to lean on that interior defensive line to dominate so everyone else can fly, you don't want to give teams like Navy and Army the same look all the time in the front because eventually they're going to counter you. And when you can keep them off balance with the different looks up front and give that quarterback different reads and make him hesitate just a little bit, it seemed like Army, based upon they were playing a little bit slower versus Notre Dame than they were playing. And it's the same thing with Navy. Like Army hadn't turned the ball over, but we see them turn the ball over. We see more tackles for loss than they're used to having, playing behind the sticks more than they're used to playing behind the sticks. So this is what that Notre Dame defense, and once again, this is a Notre Dame defensive front playing with guys that are not the starters, projected starters at the beginning of the year. So you see the preparation, right? There's a reason why they spent time during the bye week before they started preparing for Florida State, focusing on Army, right? And you see how that preparation, showed itself tonight. And then I want to point out the communication between everybody on that defense, especially, when it was motions and shifts, and it was absolutely fantastic. They were just locked in. They were fundamentally locked in on this offense and knew their assignments. And like you said, Ben, both you guys said it, man. You thought they had a 4 or 5 yard game to the outside. Christian Gray early was just, man, run support. He was just absolutely fantastic.
He set the tone.
Yeah, he
tone.
was fantastic. He was fantastic. And then you can just go to individual players. I'm sure we'll get to in the units. But overall, this defense, man, what else can you ask for them? I mean, they just constantly. I know they're upset because their scoring average has gone up the last 2 weeks because of the backups giving up late touchdowns right at the end of the fourth quarter. But it seemed like I wonder if anyone asked Marcus Freeman about this. He walked past the starters as Army got close inside the 20 and just said something. I was like, I wonder if he asked them if they wanted to go back in. But they all had their helmets off. And
it's always as a coach, it's always tempting to put the starters back in.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt. I mean, obviously made the right decision by keeping those guys out and keeping the other guys in and all that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you what, man, when you bust your butt to limit a team to that many points, and then it looks like they're going to put kind of a garbage touchdown on and just it's tempting, man. It's tempting to throw all the starters back out there. It is, man. But I'm glad he refrained from that one for sure. Ryan, what do you got, man?
I think a lot was covered. I mean, I would say here is that I'm just truly amazed by Al Golden. I really am. I mean, first and foremost, and we'll spend obviously most of the time when we talk about position groups talking about the talents at each spot, which is at a high level, obviously, because you can't be as good defensively as they are if you don't have really good players, which Notre Dame obviously does on that side of the ball. But look, you can have your Jim Knowles if you want. You can have other really good defensive coordinator in college football. I'll take Al Golden. I'm good. I'm good. I don't need anybody else. I'm good in that conversation. I thought did a masterful job of mixing up fronts. I think he did a masterful job of having pre-snap movement up front late, which I think kind of messed up the timing. And because option football is all counting, right? Like, where are the numbers advantage? What side of the it's all it is ultimately, right?
Well, and shades, like when you're the quarterback, you're looking for shades. Like
you have three technique, literally counting based on where guys are lined up.
100%.
So the first guy outside the three, outside the guard is one. Well, then all of a sudden they shift right before the snap, and it completely jacks up the entire count.
Correct.
Right.
And there were times where Notre Dame shifted twice. Yeah. Just to mess with them. Like, it was fantastic.
Didn't shift back to the original thing. Yes. Shifted to one thing and then shifted to something different.
Yes, exactly right.
And did it with discipline. Like, Ryan, don't you feel like a lot of times when you see teams do a lot of that stuff that they don't normally do, you're going to eventually see somebody like have a bad gap fit and it opens up a big run? And we didn't see that tonight. The level of discipline. And here's my big thing. I'll be honest with you guys. My biggest concern about coming into these matchups against Navy and Army was I was really concerned about how young this defense is against that offense, because you have to be so precise. And that speaks to kind of like Ryan about Al Golden, but also the staff carrying out Al Golden's desires. This is a really freaking young team that is missing 4 starters from the beginning of the year, three starters, Burnham, and then 4, because then Boubacar stepped in and started the next 2 games.
Yeah,
got hurt, and then
3 are out for the season.
You're out Benjamin Morrison.
Yeah,
and you're replacing them with young dudes, and the discipline this defense and like even some of the quote unquote mistakes they were. And I'll talk about penalties in a second, but even some of the mistakes they were making, Ryan, were like Josh Burnham sniffs out a reverse, and you just take a little better angle. And but then it's still a tackle for loss. But it's like
they still got him for a loss.
Yeah, it's like, but his mistake was just bit for a little bit of. But like, he did a great job of reading that play. And it's first down and they're running a play action pass, and the secondary is, you'd thought it was 3rd and 19 the way the secondary played that play. Like, it just, the preparation that this defense shows, because you don't do that stuff, guys, just because you're talented. Look. We watched Florida State. They're 2-9 right now. Now, do they have they should be 11-0 with their roster? No, they shouldn't be 11-0, but they should be eligible for a bowl game right now. But they're not, because they have horrible. I mean, so talent only gets you so far. I just watched UMass run for over 200 yards against Georgia, right? So it doesn't matter how much talent you have if your players aren't prepared to execute at a high level. And to see this, I keep saying this defense eventually going to have a bad game. They're eventually going to have a bad game, and you're just like, okay, well, it hasn't happened yet. And I think, Ryan, that's the amazing thing for me is, like, even the quote unquote mistakes were plays where they were like reading something big, or it was a BS face mask penalty, but on Jaden Osborne, which I thought was a joke. The only really bad, the Riley Mills hands to the face. I mean, come on, but like that's an aggressive penalty. The only dumb penalty they made, in my opinion, was the offsides on 4th down, where it's like, come on, dude, you know what I mean? But like outside of that, like just the high level of execution that we saw from this defense today was, because if they don't have those penalties, that Army might not have crossed, midfield.
I think the most egregious was the roughing the passer.
Terrible.
That was awful.
I was simply referring to the 3 on the one drive.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
3 penalties all happened on the one drive. Right. Got their first touchdown.
That was a 3rd down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
was
That
ridiculous.
was 4th.
It was 4th. Yeah, you're right. It was a 4th down.
It was 4th down, and that was a textbook hit. It was a textbook hit.
He didn't drive him into the ground. Like it's like, I don't know what
he had him off to the side.
What, are you expecting him to like tackle him and like put his hands out like this and it's like I don't know
like how he was already tackling. Like, how do you stop yourself? I mean, you can't defy gravity, okay? You can't, like, that doesn't make any sense to me how you make that call there. But I mean, it's whatever. At that point, the game wasn't in doubt, but still.
I thought the Kingston-Viliamoasa one against Navy was a really bad one, but this one was even worse today because Kaiser even hit him low too. Like it wasn't even like, because like Kingston was like slightly high, but like either way, it was still a bad call. Like today was just awful. I will say this: the quarterback for Army is nails, dude. I'd be pissed at their coach right now. I love their coach, but it's like, bro, we just lost 49-14 with a late second touchdown, and you ran me 39 times in this blowout. Like, I am gonna be sore for the next couple days, man.
Ryan, I don't get that though. Like, you've got an AAC championship coming up in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand. Like, I like Vince made a good point. Like, and he texted me a time. He's like, they're just trying to get him to 100, and then he had a run that got him over 100, and then they left him in.
They left him in. I thought that was it. Like, yank him at that point. Like,
man. Like, dude, you got bigger goals ahead of you, and this game doesn't. This game, big picture for Army, does nothing to keep them from their goals. Bryson Daly getting hurt and that garbage touchdown drive would absolutely keep them from achieving their goals this season, 100%. Because you guys watch them in Air Force, they're a completely different offense when that kid is, and that's something too, Ryan. To your point is when they lost the quarterback against Air Force, they won that game because Udo took over in the second half. They held him to 35 yards on 10 carries, and I just want to point out this statistic here real quick. They came into this game. Bryson Daly had 1,062 yards. He was averaging 6.1 yards per carry. Kenye Udo had 856 yards. He was averaging 6.7 yards per carry. Noah Short had 439 yards on 41 carries. He was averaging 10.7 yards per carry. Bryson Daly averaged 3.6 yards per carry. Kanye Udo had 3.5 yards per carry. And Noah Short carried the ball 2 times for -2 yards.
I was going to say, I don't know who Noah Short is. I didn't hear his name all night, so I don't know who that kid is. Yeah.
2 carries for -2 yards. He's one of their slot backs. He's number 15. 2 carries. He was averaging 10.7 coming in. He had 2 carries for -2 yards.
I had more yards today than he did, so that's all I know.
Oh, that's good. That's fantastic.
That was a level of dominance that you have to be impressed by.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's jump into some of the individual play, guys, and hey, we'll do it like we did the offense. Let's start up front with this defensive line and what they were able to do. We touched on it with some of the schematic stuff that they were doing, but from a man-to-man situation up front and what those guys were able to do and how they were able to do it was just impressive. I mean, you know, the one play that Riley Mills made where it looked like the kid was going to bust a long run. He just reached out and just grabbed him by the shirt and just put him down with one arm.
I thought he blocked. The way he went down, Vince, I thought he grabbed a face mask.
Yeah,
you just don't see guys go down that suddenly without being grabbing.
He grabbed him right here and just yanked him to the ground while getting blocked. Like,
that was a bully play.
That was just. I'm sorry, but that was not reminiscent. That was indicative of how the entire game went for the defensive line, in my personal opinion. They just overwhelmed Army's offensive line. They haven't seen that kind of strength, and they haven't seen that kind of speed out of stance across the board all season. They just haven't, and they didn't know what to do with it, frankly. So, Sean, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on the defensive line tonight?
It was funny because, of course, the broadcast was just harping continuously about how big the Army offensive line was. This is
And they
not
are.
a small. They're big, and they had 4 guys with 300 pounds, and it's like, yeah, man, okay, all right. But I just want to talk about, as Ryan and I say sometimes, like the last 4 weeks, Riley Mills has made some money. Riley Mills has made some money. The kid has made some money. And the last 2 weeks, he's done it without his partner in crime next to him.
Well, really, the last 3.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he started going off after Howard got hurt against Flores. He literally had sacks on the next 2 plays after Howard got hurt.
Yeah. So, kudos to him. Kudos to everyone that's in the interior defensive line rotation. And then that cat Sean Sevillano hustles his tail off. He made some plays.
He looked good at that, man.
Yeah, he made some plays like 7 yards down the field away from the ball. I'm like, okay, this kid has a motor at his side. So, and I think one of his first reps, he stuffed the court daily on a
He was
run.
pumped.
So
he was pumped too, dude. He was.
I just think, man, I love seeing, this defensive line and what they do. Eventually, in all honesty, I do wonder if they can generate pressure off the edge, against certain teams. But of course, losing your 2 best edge rushers to injury.
Well,
that's
the guy that's going to be their best pass rusher isn't playing in a game.
Isn't playing in a game like this. You're right. He blocked the punt though. Shout out. But
that's what I knew it was really over when he blocked that punt. I was like, all right, yeah, it's over. It's over.
But no, Vince, overall, the defensive line, I think once again, just the depth, the talent, and you see it growing. You see the youngsters growing. They're playing and getting more reps. And you have to love what you see. But I just want to tip my cap to that dude, Riley Mills, man, who is really, just from a straight leadership standpoint, he's playing out of his mind right now. He's playing out of his mind. So I'll leave the other meat on the bone for you guys.
Can I just really quickly just say how hilarious
you're the host.
Hilarious.
You can say whatever you want.
I just want to say how hilarious this is because obviously we're doing this live. A 5-5 USC team and a 4-6 UCLA team talking trash to each other as they go to the locker room. Just thought that was pretty funny. Anyway,
you suck. No, you suck. That's what I think they were. No, you suck worst. I think that's what they're yelling at each other.
That's just great. I just enjoyed that really a lot. But Ryan, why don't you give us some thoughts on the D-line, what they were doing, man?
Yeah, I think I have a similar concern kind of trending forward as far as like outside pass rush as Sean does. Like I still do. I truly do without Boubacar in there. But again, this is not a game that you needed that. You needed guys that were going to play well at the point of attack, create leverage, and get off blocks. And they did that at a high level. I mean, you mentioned Mills. I saw Gabriel Rubio a couple times, made a couple nice plays at the point of attack. I mean, Notre Dame, and it's a testament to them because Army's a strong offensive line, man. Like their left tackle especially is a strong kid, like really strong kid.
And like 316, Ryan. That's a big boy. Didn't you say during the chat this week that he's getting some NFL looks?
He is, yeah. He's a verified 318 pounds. Like he's a big boy. He's a big boy for an Army kid. And Notre Dame was more physical, the stronger unit tonight, and they made a lot of plays and they allowed the second and third levels to run free and make plays in space. And I mean, how many times do we see Notre Dame make a perfect form tackle in space on a pitch, right? It's because you had to force that pitch, right? You force the pitch because everything's cloudy inside. So, yeah, the interior defensive line and the defensive line in general dominated up front, which made it become a more outside-oriented attack from the Army perspective, and it ended up not working out because Notre Dame tackled really well in space for the most part today.
Brian, final thoughts on the D-line before we jump into the skill guys.
Yeah, just obviously the guys talking about Riley Mills, but I also think Donovan Heinisch has done a phenomenal job since Howard Cross.
He's really manned
He's had 3 sacks since Howard Cross went down. He had 5 tackles in this game, 4 solos. He's just all over the field. And the thing that hurt them earlier in the year is they were asking him to like really anchor a lot. He was getting pushed off the ball, and they're kind of turning him loose a little bit. And he's been really good.
They had Mills playing nose tackle a lot tonight,
Yeah.
which I noticed, right? So Heinisch was playing a little bit more like that 3,
and they were letting him attack.
5.
Right. The other thing too is I thought the defensive ends were really good in this game, right? And obviously rushing the passer is not really a thing that they're doing in a game like this. But I thought their discipline and physicality on the edge, I thought Josh Burnham was very good. I mean, his second carry of the game, they had a little quick run, and Josh Burnham just blows up the edge and stuffs it, and I thought Junior Tilamaka had another good game. I thought RJ Oben was real physical on the edge. He didn't make any plays on the ball that I can remember. But he was real physical, forcing a lot of those. I mean, the ends were the guys that were forcing a lot of those really quick pitches because of how aggressively they were flying downhill. So I thought they were really good today as well at what they were being asked to do. But the reality is the reason that Notre Dame was able to play so fast, because a lot of times when Notre Dame's playing an option team, it's the safeties and corners that are making a lot of those rangy sideline plays, right? And we've seen it for 2 decades. And they made some of those plays. I mean, Don Schuler, Christian Gray will talk about here in a little bit, but we saw a lot of the linebackers making those plays. Like there was a tackle for loss, and I think it was Christian Gray blew it up. And you look and you're like, if he doesn't, like Drake Bowen and I think Jaden Osbury, or maybe it was Jack Kaiser, both there. Like if he didn't make the play, one of those 2 guys are going to make. I mean, Drake almost has that tackle for loss, but the reason that they were able to kind of allow those guys to just fly to the ball and play that way is because of how dominant the entire D-line was, and the interior guys were excellent, but also the physicality with which Junior and Burnham and RJ Oben were just crashing the edge and being physical. They ran a couple of the counter plays, and that's been God, they killed North Texas with that quarterback counter play. And the backside ends did a great job of blowing up the pullers and forcing him to bounce. And once you have to bounce against this defense, you're done, because you're not going to get to the edge against this secondary and these linebackers if you have to bounce at all. Your only option is if you can get a downhill track and get outside, that's your only chance of getting positive yards. And so I thought they did a ton of dirty work today on the D-line, on the edge. And, and the production is there. Josh Burnham had 4 tackles. Junior had 5 tackles, and they had 7 solos. And when your defensive ends are having a lot of solo tackles, that's a great sign and speaks volumes as to why they were able to be so effective. And so it's great. We talk complimentary football. It's great complimentary play from the D-line. The D tackles just ate Army up, and the ends did their jobs physically strong and disciplined, and you just didn't give up in those big plays. I mean, the fullback dive was never there. There was never anywhere for Uday to go. There just was never room for him to run. They ran a lot of that quarterback follow, quarterback outside zone, and there was just we watched it on film. I talked about this week as I'm watching them. They'll do this little outside zone play. The quarterback just catches and he just follows the line, and they would just push teams off the line. And today is like Notre Dame was just pushing them back and back and back and back, and then he has to just kind of ram it up into the line and get +2. I just thought overall it's just an excellent performance. And we talk about giving coaches a lot of respect and props for what they do. And the job Al Washington continues to do with this defensive line, despite losing guys. He's first he loses Botelho, then he loses Boubacar, then he loses Howard Cross, then he loses Jason Onye, then he loses Howard Cross. And you're thinking like, and they still go out and just dominate. And it's been a heck of a job. That's not happening by accident. That you have to have the talent to do that. But again, it goes back to this talent is being prepared to execute at a very, very high level. And Al Golden is not coaching the D-line and the linebackers and the corners and the safeties. He's putting a phenomenal plan in place, and then his assistants are going out there and carrying out his vision, and they're doing it at a very high level with a lot of young, inexperienced dudes. And it's such an impressive coaching. If Al Golden doesn't win the Broyles Award, I'll literally never care about that award ever again.
Yeah, I think what was super dope is they switched assignments, right? I think that was on one key 4th down play. Josh Burnham had really been, kind of hesitating and playing. And I guess the defensive call they had was for him to just attack the quarterback, go attack the quarterback, and then everybody would scrape over the top. And they come with the big stop. It's like they were just so locked in on their assignments, man. Like you point out the different shifts and everything. Because I think when the backups came in, I didn't see the backup shifting, along the defensive front, the way the starters were. So the assignments and Al Golden just going to, his mad scientist mode and just like scheming things up. It was just really incredible to watch. It really was.
I'll say this about the defensive line. You guys have pretty much covered it all. I think one of the things I was most impressed with, and it has nothing to do with physical ability or anything like that, but their discipline, I thought, was excellent. Army tried to do a lot of different things to, out leverage Notre Dame, to, some trick 'em stuff, some reverses, some things where if, defensive ends, for example, had their eyes in the backfield or were just crashing without, just trying to make a play, that kind of thing, then those plays would have worked. Did not work today. I mean, no. There was nothing that Army was able to do, whether it was within the structure of their offense or whether it was a reverse or whether it was an attempted throwback, to the quarterback. I mean, Tui Alamaka is a defensive end, and he's running with the quarterback down the sideline so that throwback doesn't work. At the same time that whoever the kid was that was throwing the ball had a guy in his face, and so he just chucked it up, and said a prayer, basically. So I just thought the defensive front was extremely disciplined in this game as well, and that is always, that's always key when you play a triple option team. You have to be disciplined. You have to do your job first. It's when you start doing other people's jobs that you get into trouble. Notre Dame didn't have that problem. These guys just continued to do their own job and do their job well, and they were there to help if necessary, if a guy wasn't able to complete their job, right? So I was just very impressed with the discipline tonight from the front. So let's bump back a little bit and let's talk skill positions with the defense. And if you guys want to split it up between secondary and linebackers, I mean, that's fine. But in a run-heavy defense like this, they only threw the ball a few different times, obviously not super successfully in this game. I will tell you exactly how. Let's see. The Daly kid went 4 of 8 for 26 yards and a completion percentage of 50%. So I think the no-fly zone is still intact at Notre Dame at this point. So secondary, linebackers, skill guys, this is a unique defense because it's a unique offense, and we only get to see this once, maybe twice a year as far as the way they do it. But man, I love watching these skill guys just close space as fast as they do and then just arrive with a violence that Freeman was talking about at the beginning of the game. So Brian, why don't you lead this one off and talk about those guys and the skill position guys and what they're able to do?
Well, I just think it really comes down to speed and physical. I mean, yeah, they played physical, but they're so fast. I mean, it's whether it's a Don Schuler, whether it's Drake. Well, I mean, the play he made almost sacking Daly in the end zone was really impressive. And Jack Kaiser looking like they got a step on the edge and he flies around. I think the only mistake, I think it was Kaiser that turned the guy loose on a kind of a scramble through to the tight end on 3rd and long, and then he stumbles and they end up getting him 4th and 2. And that's really one of the few mistakes that I saw. And then Kingston, I don't think played at all. I think he was in street clothes in the second half. So just the downhill ability that Xavier Watts had a mistake in the game on a crossing route that they completed for a long gain that got called back because of a illegal chop. And do those guys not understand what a chop is? Like that
was not a chop block.
It was really questionable. Yes, huh?
What you saying? It was a chop block? It looked like a hold more than anything else.
No, because you can't be blocking a guy and then somebody else takes his legs out.
Oh, right, okay.
Like,
yeah, it just looked like they ran into each other and he was.
But it doesn't matter if you go low on a guy, whether it's intentional or not. That's absolutely a penalty. But like then he comes back the next play and makes a great play. It just the ability of this back end to just fly downhill and just the speed with which they play the game. And it's not just. There's two ways of playing fast, right? One is just you are fast, and they are fast. But a Don Schuler's not going to go to the combine and run a 4.35 in a couple of years. But he plays fast because he knows exactly where to be. And, I think that's just a testament to this group. And again, we talk about just the ability to play disciplined football, Vince. I mean, you talked at the very, very, very beginning when you talk about the defense. And when you're playing an option team and they're dropping back on, they're running play action pass on, what was the one that they ran? It was like a 2nd and 9. That's a rundown for Army. 2nd and 9 is a heavy rundown for Army. And you watch that play and they ran kind of like trying to draw Notre Dame up, and Notre Dame had 4 guys covering 2. Like their the ability to see know their keys, read their keys, and make plays was just exceptional on the back end of that defense. And Leonard Moore was a monster in this game. I mean, he was outstanding in this game in run support, forcing the fumble. Christian Gray looked a lot like the Christian Gray pre-injury, flying up, breaking up passes. I texted his mom. I was like, me and him are going to work together in this offseason, and we're going to work on him catching. He should have 2 more picks tonight. But his ability to because Christian's a skinny kid. He's not a real big guy. He's long, but he's not a real thick guy. He's built more like Benjamin Morrison than he is Leonard Moore. But that first play, what play was it, guys? Was it the first drive or was it the second drive?
It was on the toss.
First play of the second drive. They run Notre Dame starts off odd. They shift. They run a quick pitch, and it wasn't even like he outran the guy. He beat the guy and then ran to the ball. It was a physical play and then a speed play. And then, like the one play where like the quarterback kind of runs over a Don Schuler, but he doesn't let him go. He grabs the leg and brings him down. You're like, dude, that's a great sound. He went low. The guy kind of ran him over, but he hung on and the guy went down. Solo tackle. Jaden Alsbury was outstanding in this game. I thought Drake was really good in this game. The safeties were really good in this game. I don't know that I can put, well, they were really good, but that guy, Jaden Sneed, like, dude, that penalty, you just can't do that. But then he has another play later on a 4th down where he crashes inside, blows up the run. Don comes down and makes the play. But like Jalen made that play, just blowing up the lead blocker and then getting outside and helping Don blow the run up. They played with such physicality at linebacker. They're not a very big linebacking core, guys, outside of Drake. Because with Kingston out, Drake's the only big guy they have. Everybody else is less than 230. I don't care what they say Jack Kaiser weighs. He's not a 200. Oh no,
I have a verified 230 pounds on Jack Kaiser from the spring, my friend.
From the spring. He's 222 right now. Right?
Yeah, he's bulking.
And Jaden is a small guy. Jalen Sneed's a small guy, and they play physical. And that's the thing that I liked about today's game. Yeah, Jalen Sneed, dude, you got to be more disciplined on 4th down. Like, that just was bad. I still don't think the face mask on Jalen Sneed, Jaden Alsbury, I thought that was a bad call, in my opinion. I don't think he ever actually the guy looked at him, and that's what they saw. But anyway, then he comes up later and makes a big play behind the line. I just thought the speed of this group is just exceptional. And I'm still disappointed, I guess I shouldn't be, in the national media that they're not talking more about this defense. Because I've watched a lot of Ohio State, and they have a very good defense. But I'm not trading this deep group of players for that group of players at all, especially on the back 7. And they are playing at an exceptionally high level. And it's fun to watch. I mean, their 2 leading tacklers today were sophomores. Don Schuler had 8, and Jaden Alsbury had 7.
Yeah, I think you just hit everything on the head, right? Everybody looks spectacular. The penalties are something that you say, yeah, all right, we can't have that type of stuff. But their ability to absorb the game plan week to week and then like play with clarity, as Marcus Freeman says, on a weekly basis, and you can see it. They're just playing with clarity. Like, they know where they're going. I talked about Don Schuler this week. And I remember earlier in the season, he was giving heaping praise upon Xavier Watts and how important it was to play next to him and how it instills confidence in him playing next to a guy like that knows everything and is pretty much telling everybody where they should be and what they're supposed to do. And you can see he's starting to pick up some of those leadership traits himself with the way he, kind of admonishes others and the way he talks on the field. And he's just backing up consistent play. And I think, the sky's are the limit for Don Schuler. I think he's going to play even faster, next year, because he's going to know how to play and what he's doing even more. Christian Gray, like you said, get him on a jugs machine at your house in the backyard. Okay, please. Over the summer, just get him on the jugs machine. There's no way.
I got some tricks to help guys learn how to catch. He wouldn't be my first pupil that was inconsistent catching the football.
Yeah, you can bring Ben Minich along too, because he dropped the easy one as well. So that's just another example, man. They really put Daly in position to like commit turnovers. And I'm shocked they didn't go on that last drive. I'm shocked they didn't go to replay because I was like, yo, did that ball come out right on the 3-yard line? I thought they possibly had another takeaway, but they said he was down. So back seven, man, fantastic. Everybody, Jack Kaiser had a really good night. Drake Bowen chasing that running back down. Almost had a safety from the backside. Man,
too bad he's slow or whatever. People used to say.
Yeah, that's why he dropped in the rankings at on 3 and 247. He just wasn't athletic enough. And the game, and the best part, Ryan, is the play they pointed to was that long touchdown pass he gave up in the Army game where Anthony Hill blew a coverage assignment and Drake realized he did it and tries to recover. And they're like, oh, see, he's not athletic enough. Well, looks pretty freaking good to me, clown.
Man, and then like Leonard Moore with the strip.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I mean, hold on a second, Sean. Time out. Leonard Moore, he's 3-star. He was a 3-star. He's not that good. Come on.
I remember having a conversation on YouTube during the commitment show, and someone was like, "Why are we celebrating a 3-star?" I'm like, "Okay,
because he's not."
And they tried to search out. They tried to search out mismatches with Short on Osbury, like splitting them out, putting them in the slot, and it was just like,
it was all over him.
No, sir, no. None for you. I mean,
break it to Army, but Notre Dame's linebacker number 4 is faster than anyone you have in your offense at any position. I hate to break it to you.
Yeah, it was a masterclass. It really was. It was a masterclass. They worked very well, almost like an orchestra tonight. Like everybody was just fine-tuned and just played at their best.
I want to say something. I want to set Ryan up for something, if I may.
Perfect. Please do.
Ryan, you've talked a lot about Al Golden. I'm 100% on board with you. But there's something else that is not being talked enough about, not by us. But you can only go so far on defense with scheme and great coaching.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really athletic and talented back seven as well. Like, so yes, the coaching is great. Mickens is the best, but they're not turning bums. And that's the thing that like when I watch this team, I'm like, who can't run on this defense at this point in time? Who can't run?
Yeah.
And that's a big part of this.
I think so. Like when I talk about NFL, I think coaching is a big differentiator in the NFL level because I think that there's not that many teams. I think parity is at an all-time high and coaching is really the differentiator. I think on college a lot more, and coaching always matters. So this is not what I'm saying, but I think more than anything, talent wins out a lot more on the college level comparative to the NFL level, a lot more. And I mean, the sequencing makes sense in this conversation. The defensive line did a really good job not allowing easy stuff inside. So you know what happens? Things get spilled to the outside and they're trying to hit the edges. And what happens? Notre Dame's team speed takes over ultimately, right? I really think, and Sean, this is a crazy thing to say, and we already talked about this slightly, but usually someone that sets the tone is a linebacker, right? Or a defensive lineman. I think Christian Gray set the tone defensively tonight on that first. I think it was the first sequence of drives where they had that pitch outside where for a second I was like, uh-oh, that could go. That could go for first down. That could go for a little bit. And he works off this block and makes a tackle at like the line of scrimmage, or maybe it was a 1-yard gain, and he closes that quickly. I'm like, that's wild. Like, that's wild athleticism, like absolutely wild. And we saw plays like that from Christian Gray. We saw plays like that from Don Schuler. We saw plays like that from Drake Bowen. We saw plays like that from Jaden Osbury, Leonard Moore, Jalen Sneed, name them. Like, we saw it. The team speed, the closing speed on this second and third level for Notre Dame is as good as anybody in college football. Like, it is. It's just, it is. I watch games every week. I break down all 22 every single week of your favorite SEC team, your favorite Big Ten team, and anywhere in between. This team speed on the back seven is as good as anybody in college football. Like, it just generally is. So to see that, I mean, it wasn't even tonight. Like, this is a last week conversation, but like to even see guys like Tay Johnson and doing the things that they're doing and barely having any role in this defense right now and seeing what the future looks like, it's hard not to get super excited, man. But I really think, like, we'll talk about game balls, I'm sure, at some point here, but like, cat's out of the bag. Christian Gray's my guy on defense. Even though he dropped a couple picks, man, like he was incredible tonight. Absolutely
Ryan,
incredible.
Tay Johnson missed the first 2 freaking months of the season.
I know. And he's playing
and
in
then
position
comes
he's never
back
played
and he's
before.
exactly. It's ridiculous.
All right, fellas. Anybody got anything else to say about the defense overall before we move on to the next segment of the show?
What's the next segment, Vince? Is it going to be super chats?
It's super chats, brother.
Okay, let's do it. Kind of Ryan just brought up. Let's hand out some game balls.
Okay,
both sides of the ball before we move on, and we'll go defense and offense. And Ryan, we'll start with you since you already kind of got that conversation started.
It's the St. Louis connection tonight, my friends. The St. Louis connection. The DeSmet on the first side of the defensive side of the football goes to Christian Gray. I know he needs to finish a couple plays in the pass game, but like his work on the perimeter, I thought was incredible. And yes, he didn't finish the plays, but he still had a couple pass breakups because he's in the position and nobody's making any catches on him ultimately, right? So I think they made one catch, was like a little hitch or something like that on him. That was the only ball I saw completed on Christian Gray all night. So Christian Gray on the defensive side of the ball, offensive side of the ball, it has to go to Jeremiah Love. I mean, he had 7 carries for 130 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had a touchdown catch, right? So I'll give DeSmet some love from St. Louis on the defensive side, and I'll give Christian Brothers some heads up on the offensive side of the football. So it was the St. Louis connection tonight.
I'm the same, Sean. Those are offensively, I'm the same. I think if I was going to give it to somebody else, I'd probably go Adon. I thought Adon was kind of similar to what Christian was. He was a bit of a tone setter, just coming down and just smacking people and just being in position. So I'll just throw some love to him as just a kind of someone else that I thought played really well. And then you could just kind of you could put the 2 tackles together, Donovan and Riley together as like a game ball. But yeah, I'll just to be a little different, I'll go Don Schuler, but I don't know how you can go anywhere else. I mean, just you're talking about setting the tone, Ryan. First play of the game against the number 1 run defense in the country. Jeremiah Love makes a great read, cuts it back, boom, 13 yards, just like that. I mean, talk about setting the tone. He did that on offense as well.
I hate to say that, but after that play, I was like, oh, this is going to be.
Took one play for you, Vince?
Seriously. I was like, oh, that's it? Okay, cool. We're good.
Wrap it up. Vince is changing channels.
What's going on with Alabama? It was again, that was the offense, but it was just the ease of it. It just looked easy. And it continued on, obviously, after that. But Jeremiah Love gets mine on offense as well. And I'm gonna go Riley Mills. And if just for the play where he grabs the guy by the front of the shirt and pulls him down, that was just a man's play, and he just kind of dominated.
Well, and he had the pressure on the sack that Junior had early.
Yeah,
on that 2nd and 9 play on the second drive.
He forced him to step up. Yeah, he forced him to step up in the pocket. And I mean, what was the over under on getting a sack in the Army game? You know what I mean? And Notre Dame was able to do that. And
the second drive of the game.
Right. And it was 1-0 sacks tonight.
Right.
So, that was a pretty impressive situation. So, Sean, game balls for you, brother.
Yeah, and Steve Angeli played a quarter and a half and didn't get sacked. It was a crazy night for him, too. So.
It's a heck of a performance.
It was a heck of a performance.
No, I'm going to go defensively. I'm going to go with the 2 tackles. I really think they set the tone, and I think they allowed everybody else to go and do their thing by bouncing everything outside, and I think that was very important. So I'll go with the 2 tackles on the inside. I think the entire defensive line played well. I think the edge is forced, and then they played both accordingly to bounce it outside when they needed to. And offensively, I'm going to stay in the trenches, man. Shout out to Billy Schrauff on his best. I think Billy Schrauff was dominant tonight, man. That cat, if we get that Billy Schrauff, it's like, but then, what the crazy thing is, this is the Billy Schrauff we've been waiting on since the time he signed.
Well, he was starting to play. He was the one guy that I thought was flashing more of that to start the season and then got hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for our.
Hold on. Did you give yours, Vince?
Yeah.
You did? Okay.
Yeah,
you made Sean go last?
Well, that's the way it went down. I mean,
That's because we were aligned with the trenches and everything.
That's right.
Yeah.
Love it. Thanks, Sean.
Gotcha.
Back.
What's up, Sean?
No, just,
All right. Well, that is going to do it for our defensive breakdown of Notre Dame's 49-14 win over Army. Make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell, share with your family and friends, and of course, jump on the boards.irishbreakdown.com for all of your Notre Dame Fighting Irish coverage needs. And, obviously there's going to be a lot to be said about this game, and there's going to be a lot to be said about the rankings that are going to be coming up. There's going to be a lot said about Notre Dame women's big win this afternoon. And so a lot to be said all around. And so that's where you need to be. Boards.irishbreakdown.com. Best product money can buy. Just going to say it. Okay. So make sure you jump on the boards. All right, let's wrap this thing up with some super chats here, Brian. We'll kind of do it how we always do it. You pull them up. I don't even know how many we have because I don't have my chat open. But you pull them up, I'll read them, and we'll just fire through these things.
Vince, first couple I'm gonna pull up are just gonna be the ones where people just gave kind of super stickers.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
Just
we
give
can thank
you
them.
a couple of those, yeah.
Let's thank them. K. Grant, my man, it says go Irish. Thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate you very, very, very much.
Got a chance to meet K. Grant's wife.
Really?
Yep, he was at the tailgate, so he brought his wife, was able to meet
Nice.
her, so got a chance to see him again.
Awesome.
It was great seeing Carrie again. Thank you for that super chat.
Dr. Felonius McGee, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you very much. Trevor Rocket, our guy from north of the border, thank you for the super chat. Great win in prime time tonight. Cheers, IB Nation. Thank you, Trevor.
All right,
Appreciate
now we
you
get
very
into
much.
some of these ones that have more
meat.
I mean, they're all very meaty, but more
questions
requiring
is
more
what I meant.
dialogue.
Yes,
requiring more dialogue in
They're all-
response.
They're all meaty. All right, Fred Lundian, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you very much. Great win, rose to the occasion. Main concern is our field goal unit. That will matter, but offense and defense were great. Mad respect to Army. Bryson Daly's been beaten to death and still brings it.
I mean, Fred, that was a lot of meat. You're right. There was a lot of meat on that one. There's no doubt about it. I'm trying to make a joke, but it didn't land, so I'm gonna keep working here.
12:30, Ryan. It's all good.
Yeah,
man.
I was gonna say it's 12:30.
I'm about to fall. I'm gonna
good.
fall asleep in
This
a
is
minute.
way past both of your bedtimes. You guys with kids.
Field goal unit is a massive concern.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
is.
it is.
I think the positive is that you have one game next week, which you should be able to gut through. Then you have championship weekend, and so you have a couple weeks to hopefully get Mitch Jeter healthy. Hopefully,
Ryan, they need to sit him next week.
Yeah.
Yes.
They need to give him the whole.
Yes.
I said they should have sat him in this game.
Right.
Now, I understand you don't know if it's going to be a blowout. I understand all that, but like the kid's not right, and you're not helping him by because now it's going to get in his head. They need to sit him, not to bench him. This isn't a punishment.
No, this is an injury. It's recovery.
He's clearly not right. He's one of the most accurate kickers in the country the last 2 years, and he's now what 6 of 10, 6 of 11,
6 of
something
11,
like that.
6 of 11. Yeah,
and
one of his last 4, 6 of 11 now.
And yes, you haven't needed him. You've been terrible at kicking field goals the last month of the season, and it hasn't mattered. That's fine. But if you're going to win 4 games and attempt to win a championship, you're going to need a field goal, able to hit a field goal in some of those games. I mean, the odds of Notre Dame being able to just go do the next in the 4 playoff games, what they've done the last 2 months of the season is slim, right? I guess anything could happen, I guess, but like it's very unlikely.
That'd be great.
You're going to need the field goal unit to come through for you, and you've got to get Mitch Jeter right mentally and physically. And there's no reason to play him next week. Just don't play. And hey, we don't have a field goal unit. We're getting it from 30 in. We can attempt those. That's it. But
Yep.
And look, we've seen Zach Yoakum be better than he's been so far. And so there's clearly something that's going on there in that operation that's really checking. Like there's some confidence issues going on in that group.
And it's
right now.
Look, it's not just the kicker either. Can we be clear on that?
The block was not on. I don't think was on.
No. You can't let a guy come in untouched between the guard and the center. I mean, excuse me, the guard and the tackle. Like he came in untouched. Yeah. Now, Army was leaping over the center and doing some other things, and it's okay, whatever. But the guy who blocked the kick came in untouched between the guard and the tackle. Yeah. That can't happen.
Yeah.
That cannot happen. So it doesn't matter who you've got kicking the ball there. You have Justin Tucker kicking. If a guy comes in untouched, he's going to block it every time.
Yeah.
So now, are there issues with the kicker? 100%. I leaned over to Dylan because they were talking they're talking about how he's got his groin wrapped. I'm like, do you think you could kick with a wrapped groin? He's like, I don't even know how you would wrap a groin, Dad. I was like, yeah, me neither. So like, they need to just sit him down and let him. I mean, it's a month. They literally have a month between now.
If they choose to sit him now.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. They've got a month. Just sit him now. 4 weeks. It's going to be about not doing anything for a while, whether it's a groin, a hamstring, whatever the injury is. Like, it's going to take some time. So just let him sit, man. You don't listen, if next week comes down to a field goal, Brian, there's bigger issues at play here. Okay. I'll say that. Yep. So you have to go in with the confidence that your team is going to do what they're supposed to do next week. And the field goal kicking unit doesn't matter. Any of those guys on the roster can kick an extra point, including Eric Goins, who's your kickoff guy. Right. They can all kick extra points.
Well, sorry to break it to you, Vince, but Eric Goins is 0 for 1 on extra points
against Navy. But here's the thing: like he was the third guy they brought in, right? Yeah, so whoever's going to be your guy for the next game, you say, "Hey, you're our guy during the week of practice. You're going to take all the reps. Mitch is going to rest. You're going to be spending time in rehab." Because again, with Mitchell, the Mitch Jeter, my issue isn't just his hamstring or groin or whatever, guys. It's kicking is as mental as any position that there is.
Completely agree.
And you're going to need Mitch Jeter in the postseason. You're going to need him.
Yeah.
And you've got to get him physically and mentally right over the next month. And if you, like you said, Vince, if you don't beat USC because here's the thing, I could say, well, the same thing is true. You could lose to USC because you go with him and he's not right. It's you know what I mean? So like, just rest the kid, let him play. And now Mike Denbrock knows, hey, listen, anything from outside the 25 is 4 down territory. And you know what I mean? At this point in time. So keep that in mind on 3rd and 9, that this is 2 down territory, and get what you need to get. Make sure that you don't lose yards or get nothing. You know what I mean? Like let Mike Denbrock call the game, knowing that's the reality.
Right. Exactly. That has to be the game plan. Absolutely. Because you call the game differently that way. Yeah.
They are, I mean, just the numbers. Mitch Jeter is 1 for his last 4. He's now 6 of 11 on the season. Zach Yoakum is 2 of 5 on field goals. Marcelo Diomaid is 0 for 1, and then Eric Goins has missed an extra point. So they are 8 of 17 on field goals right now, which is a problem. And I think Mitch Jeter is the only answer that you potentially have on the roster. I mean,
100%.
Zach Yoakum's a good backup kicker, but like, if there's a kicker that I need to make a big kick in a big moment in a playoff game, it has to be Mitch Jeter, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Like, it has to be him making that, attempting that kick. So,
Brian, this is a kid that was over 90% the last 2 years in the SEC.
Right.
What you're saying now is not Mitch Jeter that Notre Dame got. You got a Mitch Jeter that's physically and just not there.
Yep.
And you've got to let him recover. You got a month. Let him recover. Agree.
Yeah. And
we're on the same page.
Yeah. And can I just say one last point of order? I've seen people say this throughout the week and things like that, talking about the field goal unit and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, go to the soccer team and get somebody to kick. Like, guys, kicking a soccer ball is completely different than kicking a football. And you can't just bring somebody in the middle of the week and expect them to be able to kick a football in a big game. That's just not how it works.
Hold on a second.
This isn't unnecessary roughness.
No. So the fact that you said that is so beautiful to me, because I was like, I saw Kathy Ireland do that same thing against Kansas, and she kicked the game-winning field goal and got hurt and kicked the guy in the nuts. So don't tell me that you can't get someone off the soccer team. I just love the fact that you went right to that as I'm about to set up Kathy Ireland doing that is just so beautiful right now, Vince. It's so beautiful.
We're right here. We're right here.
Vince, you mean the first time Brendan Aubrey kicked the football, the Angels didn't sing? That didn't happen on the first time he hit it?
It's right. Crazy. And Chief Brody, my buddy, I appreciate the fact that you guys were kicking field goals at practice, at soccer practice. That's also not with a live snap and a hold either. Yeah. That's a big difference. Just throwing it out there. It's probably not on a tee that you guys were using.
In the LA Coliseum next week.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, come on now. Right. Exactly. Anyway. All right. Miles Whitaker, thank you so much for the super chat. Assume Penn State and Indiana drop below Notre Dame in the college football playoff rankings, and Notre Dame and Ohio State win next Saturday. If Ohio State loses to Oregon in the Big Ten championship game and then has 2 losses, does Notre Dame end up as the highest ranked non-conference champ?
I still think that the loser of the Big Ten title game will, barring Michigan beating Ohio State next week, which, like, don't get caught up in what they did to Northwestern today. They're pretty terrible right now. Ohio State's going to beat Michigan next week and beat them convincingly.
For Ryan
But
Day's
barring me being wrong on that, and I've been pretty right about Michigan so far this year. Barring me being wrong on that, I think the loser of that game is going to be the number 5 seed. Like, now you could make a case that if Oregon beats Ohio State again, convincingly this time, that maybe Notre Dame could jump up if we assume what Miles said. But I think it would require the loser of that game to get smashed.
Yes, agreed.
In my opinion.
And the loser has to be Ohio State because
I even think if Oregon gets crushed, like 24-point deficit, maybe.
Okay.
But to your point, the odds are greater if Ohio State gets
because they'll have their second
and
loss.
Gets beat by 14.
Right.
In a game where Oregon's just better. I'm not saying that's going to happen.
I like that. So the margin doesn't have to be quite as big if Ohio State loses.
Correct.
If Oregon loses, that margin needs to be bigger. I get that. Okay.
Yeah.
I can get on board with that.
But I'm just excited that we don't have to think about that for when Michigan beats Ohio State next week. It's going to be lovely. It's going to be the greatest.
I'm not no problem with it.
I'm rooting for Michigan next week. As long as horrible as that sounds, I'm rooting for Michigan next week. I know it is what it is.
So if Michigan win, let's run this scenario.
That's how much I despise Ryan Day, that I would actually be okay with Michigan beating Ohio State next week.
So if Michigan beats Ohio State, that means IU is in the championship game, right?
Yeah,
because they're the only other one.
I think Penn State would.
Why is that?
Because of the tie, because they don't have a head-to-head tiebreaker. I thought I heard them saying today that that Penn State would have the tiebreakers based on a couple things. That's what I thought I heard, but don't quote me on that.
I don't know what it is.
I
James
thought
Franklin another big game, huh?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, baby.
He's ready for it. He's ready for it.
Yeah. By the way, we're about to get a Boise UNLV rematch, barring upsets next week, because Fresno is kicking the crap out of Colorado State right now. So they were the other undefeated team. UNLV needed Colorado State to lose to have a shot to get into that title game, but. So
common conference opponents is the answer.
I know. Well, Vince, we'll talk about more tomorrow night. But I know there's a lot of people that don't think there's any chance that Penn State falls behind Notre Dame. I do. I do too.
I do too.
They could. They could
just look at today. I mean,
they barely beat a 6-5 team, and Notre Dame absolutely just destroyed Army.
Number 19 in the country. That the committee put at 19. They must have thought. At least
Notre Dame beat Army the way that Penn State beat Purdue. Seriously. They beat Army. Was it 42-10? 49-10? Notre Dame beat Army 49-14. Like, I actually think there is a chance they drop them down. Because I don't think they're going to want to go into the playoffs with the number 1, 2, and 3 teams basically being Big Ten teams. I think they're going to want to do something to mix that up a little bit.
I kind of disagree with one thing. Like, I was really impressed with Penn State today, man. Like, they kept their streak alive. They still haven't beaten a team that has less than 4 losses on their schedule. It's crazy streak.
I thought he was about to be serious for a second.
So did I. I was
crazy
like, awesome.
Streak,
what were you
man.
impressed with?
Yeah.
Crazy streak.
Hey, my boy Justin Lustig came through with a big time fourth fake punt in that game, Vince. Although that was, like you said, that was horrible. How do you not see that the guy's cockeyed and about to snap the ball?
I sent you the screenshot.
Yeah,
of that.
It was great.
I mean, the snapper is literally at an angle
facing the guy he was snapping.
Pointed at the guy he's snapping the ball to. Like, I'm sitting here, and again, I'm sitting here with my son. We're watching the game. He's like, "This is going to be a fake, Dad." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Look at the snapper."
Yeah.
I was like,
"Yeah."
How does he goes? Special teams recognition. What's wrong with these people? I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yep.
So, that was nuts. That was crazy. All right, Patrick James with the super chat. Thank you so much, Patrick. Appreciate you. Is there a team in the country with more speed on defense? First of all, whoever thought that question would be asked of a Notre Dame team, like, based on when we first started doing these podcasts, Brian. Oh, Notre Dame doesn't have any speed.
Notre Dame always had a player here, a player there. Like,
Jalen
Smith was as explosive as any player in the country in 2015, right? And then they'd always have like a guy here, a guy there, and then they'd be countered by playing Matthias Farley's and Zeke Matta's and good football players, but just not speed guys. And but no, I mean, just everywhere you go. I mean, like literally is, and again, I'm not trying to get into a Benjamin Morrison conversation, but I think Benjamin Morrison's an elite cornerback. But when he went out, you got faster at corner.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying Benjamin or Leonard Moore's better, or you got faster. You know what I mean? Like, Don Schuler's probably your slowest player. Not he's probably fast, but like as far as for the position, he's probably your slowest player. And he has no issues with running and making plays with his speed. And so, no, I don't know. I don't think that there's a faster defense. Is in a combination of their actual athletic speed and the way that they play fast. Did you guys watch Georgia today? Like, Ryan, did you watch any of that game today?
No.
And I'm thinking, like, UMass at one point in time, it was middle of the second quarter, and they had 150 rushing yards. And they just ran the ball right down the field on. Like,
they had 160 something right near halftime. So
yeah, it was ridiculous. And I'm like, I would not trade. There might be two players I'd say, let me have him and let me have him. And that's about it. No, I don't think that there's a team that has. There might be some in the conversation. Like, this team's in the same ballpark, but there's nobody with more.
Oh, yeah. There's some in the conversation. Yeah. I think there's defenses that have more size than Notre Dame out there. There's a lot of them, actually, but there's team
Army.
Speed, not really. Yeah. Team speed, not really. I mean, I'm like literally thinking in my mind, it's just like, I think Notre Dame's team speed on defense is as good as anybody in the country. Is there some teams that have more size than them? Sure. But is there team speed? I don't think so.
Yeah. Agree. All right. Thanks, Patrick.
Fred Lundian, I believe this is his second super chat. Thank you so much. Tell it on the mountain, B and V, SEC losing, KU winning, Penn State barely winning, Notre Dame, baby.
I just want to say this because it's just being funny and sarcastic, but you know how dominant Notre Dame is? They're so dominant that Ole Miss and Alabama wanted no part of maybe getting them in the bracket. And they're like,
so they're out. They're like, we'd rather just not even be in the playoffs.
Let's just lose to an SEC team because people will get less crap for losing to a 5-5 Oklahoma team or a 5-5 Florida team than we will going up north and getting our butts kicked in 20-degree weather.
The first projection that I saw, they were talking about at a halftime of the UCLA game, was Notre Dame hosting SMU in the first round as a 6th seed, and then Miami.
I think if SMU gets in, I don't know that they're going to be an 11 seed. I think they'd be higher than that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, Vince.
Well,
there's going to be 3 lost SEC teams in the bracket.
Okay. They're going to get another loss though if they lose to Miami in the
but remember,
title
Vince.
game.
We've been told that
they may not fall out. You'll get penalized from seeding. Your seeding will get penalized. You may not get kicked out. I
still say that there's going to be look, if Texas doesn't win the SEC championship, the team that loses that game is going to have 3 losses, if not 4. You know what I mean? I think it's going to have to be. I think Georgia now is in the pole position for that now, correct?
I don't know. I haven't looked at all that stuff.
Right.
Yet,
so barring Georgia beating Texas again, I don't think it's a given that the loser of the SEC championship is going to be ahead of SMU. I don't. But I still think SMU beats Miami.
Okay.
So, but we'll see.
Yeah. Looks like Georgia's 6-2.
Yeah.
So they have,
and they're done in SEC play.
Correct.
They got Georgia Tech next week.
Yeah, correct. Eric Carroll, thank you so much for the super chat. Always love when Notre Dame wins by a lot, and people that give us super chats
now I'm even more pissed that they didn't get that last red zone touchdown and the 2 field goals, because then
look, because the second team gave up that touchdown, we got an extra 7 cents. Okay, so you look on the bright side, buddy. All right. So, all right, Eric, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate you very much. Price really wanted that second touchdown. Great win overall. Yeah. Go Irish.
Yeah. He ran hard.
He did.
This best backfield is so good.
Yes.
It's so good.
Agreed. Alan,
what about the backfield?
Alan Watson, thanks for the super chat, man. Appreciate you very much. Love looked like he was at a different level. It looked like he was Bo Jackson in Tecmo Bowl.
Yeah, he was toying with them.
Look, guys. 7 carries for 130 yards. That's
and he played one series. I think he only played 1 play in the second. I'm gonna have to go back and look. I think he only played 1 play in the second half.
Yeah, I didn't see it after that.
Yeah, because the second drive it was Price and Aeneas, I believe. I don't think he played a snap after that, guys.
I don't think he did either.
Here's a fun comparison for you guys. Love had 130 yards and 2 touchdowns in the game, right? On the ground. Bryson Daly had 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 9 more yards than Jeremiah Love. Here's the thing. He also had 32 more carries to get to that point. Okay.
Pretty wild.
32 more carries and only got 9 more yards. So, yeah, Jeremiah Love's pretty good.
Yeah, he doesn't suck.
No.
He doesn't suck. Yeah, he had he also had a catch for 6 yards, so he only had 3
that's
less
true.
total yards of offense.
Right,
and 3 touchdowns
and 31 less touches. So
yeah.
There you go.
That means he would only have to average 0.28 yards per carry on his next 32, and he would still grab it.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Joe, our buddy Joe, thank you so much for the super chat, Joe. This was total domination. Penn State is overrated. Ole Miss is done. Illinois is done. Well, they weren't really in it, but all right. We need to be number 4.
Illinois got a W tonight.
They did.
They came. That was crazy.
They did get a W. Anything else is bias against Notre Dame. Go Irish. Go get a kicker. Vince's boy. Go Irish. Wouldn't be upset.
Wouldn't be eligible to play in the postseason.
No, he's not eligible. They could bring him in early like they did CJ Carr, but I don't think he's allowed to play.
Yeah, because Jay Don Blair is going to do that, but he's not eligible to play in the postseason.
Is he? Okay, cool.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So it's nice here is if they go on a nice run and win at least 2 or 3 games,
that's
and
true.
They get like almost a month of practice.
All of those
they'll
early
basically start
enrollees.
like the week of the playoff game. That's when they'll start.
Okay.
So I don't know how much contact they'll be able to do that week. They'll probably just be kind of and then the second and third week, if hopefully.
Well,
they'll be able to go.
If Notre Dame makes it to or any team makes it to the championship game and they enroll early, won't they all be on campus?
Yeah, but they'll be getting in later in the process. I believe they'll be able to practice.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. Well, I think the second semester doesn't start till the middle of January. So it'd be very late.
Yeah.
Like maybe the last game.
I'd still suit them up, throw them out there, see what they got.
Yeah. Penn State is overrated. Yes.
Oh my gosh,
And
yes. TJ Fleck let us all down, by the way.
Shocker. They just were. Yeah, we'll talk about that tomorrow.
That's good. Jadon Blair's getting there soon. Bryce Underwood's going to be at LSU in December. Oh,
yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Wow.
And yes, Ole Miss. That was the most Ole Miss thing to do, man. You've got the playoff committee loves you. You're on fire.
Yeah.
You're playing at a high level, and then you just go get. And I'll tell you what. I mean, especially if they beat Florida State next week, what a heck of a job Billy Napier's done with this football team. I'm serious. As far as not the results were
But not letting them check out.
Yes.
That's not an easy thing to do.
No, Vince. They were 1-2. They had gotten blown out by Miami, blown out by Texas A&M, and from that point on, that has been a quality football team. Spanked Mississippi State, beat UCF by double digits, took Tennessee to overtime, destroyed Kentucky. Played Georgia hard for 4 minutes, beat LSU last weekend, beat Ole Miss this weekend. The only team that crushed them is the team that everybody complains about. They haven't played anybody. Texas, overrated, blah, 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 blah. Well, all I know is Texas is the only team that's annihilated Florida in the last 2 months of the SEC teams. And they beat Kentucky more convincingly than all those other SEC teams did. So keep crying. They're just not getting their space. Like if Alabama had the same resume as Texas did, they wouldn't be saying a word about Texas's strength of schedule. They'd be like, oh, they're just so dominant over everybody. But yeah, this is the problem with Lane Kiffin. He's immature and not. I mean, buddy of mine, he's tweeting during College Game Day. You've got a noon kickoff, and you're tweeting about watching College Game Day. It's like, oh, there you go. There you go.
A Clayton 47, another score super chat. Thank you very much. A Clayton, appreciate you very much. Army increased it by 0.07. I always watch your content, but usually the next day. In the past, several of those plays by Army go for 30 to 40 yards, but the D played fast. I'm not going to say it, but why not us this year?
Say it.
Look,
say it.
If you watched college football today, okay, start to finish, flipping around, looking at all the teams and watching them play, Just actually watching them with not looking at final scores, just watching them play. Tell me Notre Dame doesn't belong on the field
today
with anybody in the country. That's all I'm saying.
Today, there were two teams that played better, significantly better than anybody else. And it was Notre Dame and Ohio State.
It's fair.
Ohio State's offense to me wasn't that good today, but their defense was brilliant
dominant
today.
Yeah, their defense was dominant.
And so, but no, those two teams, Texas looked good versus Kentucky, but not great. And then, of course, we saw what happened everywhere else. I mean,
just chaos. 7 of the top 20 teams lost today. 7.
And even some of the wins were like, what is Georgia doing?
Yeah,
like they're not playing very well against UMass.
100%.
Penn State barely beats Minnesota. Alabama gets smacked. Miami does what Miami does, which is those padded stats, fourth quarter blowouts like they did.
They do that a lot.
Yes, they do. They do not blow teams out like people think. Ole Miss gets beat. Georgia sleepwalks through the UMass game. Tennessee beat UTEP, but there was nothing in the first quarter. Boise needs a comeback win over 2-9 to beat 2-9 Wyoming. SMU looked good today. That's the third team that I thought played really well today. They smacked Virginia. Arizona State with a gritty win over BYU. A&M got beat. Colorado got smashed. Kansas has ruined the Big 12's playoff chances of getting two teams in.
Hilarious.
Clemson played an FCS team. South Carolina played an FCS team. Iowa State had a 3-point road win over a 4-7 Utah team, and Missouri had an okay 19-point win over a 2-9 Mississippi State team. I mean, there were three teams that were significantly better than everybody else today, and it was Notre Dame, Ohio State, and SMU. And Notre Dame and Iowa and Ohio State both beat ranked opponents convincingly. So why not Notre Dame? And neither of those teams, in my opinion, were quite as dominant as Notre Dame was in all facets of the game. So,
can't disagree with that.
Yeah, it's fun to watch, dude. This team's fun to watch.
Charlie Weiss's last belt loop. What's up, Charlie? Haven't seen you in a little bit. Thanks for the super chat. 24 Notre Dame versus 05 USC. How much does Notre Dame dominate USC and Reggie Bush? Wow. Go Irish, love IB.
Let's pump the brakes, brother.
Yeah, all right.
Let's pump the brakes.
Reggie Bush is the most dominant football player I've ever seen in person. Period. End of discussion. He is dominant, and you can put him anywhere on the field. And he was dominant. I mean, that's
because you were at that game, right, Vince?
Oh yeah, I was at that game. Yeah, and just watching USC during those years where he was there. I mean, he was just an absolute beast.
Notre Dame could play with that team.
They could. Well, look, Notre Dame 05 Notre Dame played with that team.
Right.
I mean,
dominate. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's pump the brakes a little bit. But I love hey, Charlie, man, I love that you're being over enthusiastic, man. That's a good look. It looks good on you, my friend. It looks good on you.
Sean Lucero, thanks for the super chat. How good is Jeremiah Love?
Special player.
He's really good, actually. Really good.
Yeah, very special player.
Chief Brody, thanks for the super chat. Brian bought 4 home playoff tickets today. Optimism?
Man, I think you just jinxed Notre Dame, buddy. I think you did it. I'm going to blame you if they lose next weekend. 100% on you, buddy. I hate to do it to you. But no, I mean, it's hard. I mean, look, there's plenty of people finding things to complain about. But, guys, this is a dominant win. It doesn't mean that they were perfect. I mean, again, field goal kicking unit, that's a problem. But this is a fun team to watch, Vince.
Yes, it is.
Because even when they don't play great football, they dominate.
Yes.
And
the offense is a big play waiting to happen, and same with the defense for that matter. So it's fun to watch this team. It's not like in the past where, the defense is fun to watch and the offense is like you just grit your teeth and pray that nothing bad happens. You know what I mean? Like there is legitimate optimism for this team as a whole. Now, when they line up for a field goal, I'm gritting my teeth and hoping something bad doesn't happen. I'll be honest with you. That's where I'm at right now. And I know all of you are as well. So, but yes, this team offensively and defensively, they're hitting their stride at the right time, right? I mean, we always talk about baseball and you want to be playing your best baseball at playoff time and, that kind of stuff. They're playing their best football right now. And yes, bad loss back in September. They're playing their best football right now. And they're in the driver's seat to get what they want, what they need to get. They are.
Yeah.
So
after tonight, there's only one team in the country, I believe, that has more 50-yard gains on the ground than Notre Dame, and that's Boise State.
And they're a fairly one-dimensional team. So,
and their running back is good,
really good.
Like he's
really,
the best running back
good.
in the country. Now 2-5, Notre Dame dominates them.
Correct.
You know, but he's really good, and their entire offense is built around him.
Yeah. Hunter Hall, thanks for the super chat. This team is on fire right now. I'm excited to see what happens come playoff time. The playoffs are going to look crazy with all these upsets. Look,
Yeah,
we're going to see the biggest change in the CFP rankings on Tuesday night than we've seen all year so far.
it's insane, Vince.
It's going to be nuts. And this is where we're going to we'll talk about kind of like our predictions and where we think I think this is going to be the first week where we might be different in a lot of spots. You know what I mean? Like before it was kind of like, okay, they're just going to move this chunk here and these guys.
Yeah, it's like how far do all these teams that lost fall?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
like
like
who takes their
especially
place?
Bama. Like, at least Ole Miss can say, hey, look, we had a close loss to a hot team, a kind of a hot team, you know. But like Alabama should fall way down. They got smoked, Vince. I mean, that wasn't even a close game. They got smoked. And not by like Indiana can be like, look, we're gonna fall, but guys, we lost to a really good number 2 team in the country at their place. You know what I mean? Like, but Bama got smoked by a 5-5 Oklahoma team who's not good, Vince. And it's not like Oklahoma's like Florida, you could look at and say, all right, that was a bad loss for Ole Miss, but Florida's been playing good football for a while, except for the Texas game when DJ Lagway didn't play. They've been a pretty good football team. Oklahoma's lost 4 of their last 5 games, and the only team they beat was Maine, and the only game that was within a touchdown was Missouri. Ole Miss beat them by 12. South Carolina beat them at home by 26, and Texas beat them by 31. Actually, coming into this game, they had lost 5 of 7 games. They had a 6-point road win over Auburn and a win over Maine. So it's not even like with Florida, you could look at Florida and be like, hey, look, you know, I know that Florida's 5-5, but man, look, they beat, you know, they beat Kentucky. They took Georgia down the wire. They smacked LSU. They played Tennessee in overtime. You know, no, Oklahoma stinks. Yeah. They whooped them, Vince. It was not close.
At any point in the game, by the way.
Yeah, it was not close.
Isaiah Lehman, thanks for the super chat. Can J Love kick? Hope KVA is fine. # go Irish.
Yeah. Trevor was at the game, said he was walking around fine with no limp. He just had a sleeve on his knee, not a brace, just a sleeve. So probably nothing, hopefully nothing major.
Yeah.
But if there is, I mean, rest him next week and get him healthy for the playoffs.
100%.
You know?
Yeah. Could not agree more. It's calling you at 1 a.m. Good grief. Michael S. Thanks for the super chat. Good game, but got complaints. Uniforms with numbers you can't read. Mystery face mask penalty. Denbrock's goal line calls. Notre Dame's field goal unit.
Yeah, we talked about the last 3, Vince. It just seems like whenever Notre Dame plays in a baseball stadium, a lot of times they wear uniforms where you can't see the numbers. Remember 15 in Fenway, where they had the green numbers on the green jerseys and the kids came on TV? And
I like the uniforms. I thought they were cool. So I don't want them every week. I liked them 1 week. They were cool.
I don't give a crap what they wear when they play like they did.
Fair enough. So yeah, it's all good. All good. Aiden Benami, thanks for the super chat. I think J Love is still floating in the New York air. I mean, that boy got up, man. Like that was
impressive.
That was beautiful.
Yeah,
that was beautiful. That Army kid had no clue what just
happened. He's like, what? Where did he go?
He was expecting impact and was hugging air. So
that was so high.
I mean,
that guy didn't go that low, Vince.
Right, and then
didn't go that low,
but then landed on his feet.
Like it was
normally when guys hurdle a guy, you know, their top end goes a little bit more forward, and they always fall down. Yeah. Like it was poetic, is what it was. It was poetic. Dolly Madison,
big one.
Thank you so much for the super chats. Probably because I bought all those Christmas tree ones. You know, the Little Debbie. Anyway. Thanks for the super chats. Thank you, gentlemen, for your observance of the game. Brian, Vince, Sean, and Ryan, go Irish.
Thanks, you, Dolly. Appreciate you.
Kenny Moore, thanks for the super chat. What's the difference between a Marcus Freeman coach team and a Brian Kelly? Violence.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
At the present, absolutely.
It's and I don't care if some people, why are you still talking about, because that's what you're trying to build on, right? You're trying to go past that.
You
and
have to
talking
compare
about what the differences are is important. But it really comes down to that team won at times in spite of their coach, and this team is winning more because of it and of their coaching, and that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yep. Tyler Evans, thanks for the super chat. Who's ready for the playoff rankings on Tuesday?
Yeah, I'm very curious where Notre Dame is going to be. I'm curious.
There's so many question marks, man. So many question marks.
Yeah.
How far do these teams that lost go down? How far do the teams that won go up? Do they take into account the fact that they won by a point and struggled? Do they take into account the fact that they dominate? Like all of those different things. Are they going to start looking at resumes a little bit closer now that we're getting towards the end of the season? There's only, you got one more set of rankings to come out where 80% of the teams are going to be done playing. And then you've got, the conference championship games. But, we've been told that if you're ranked going in, you're going to be ranked coming out. So what is that going to look like in 2 weeks? This ranking is going to be so key to what the rankings are going to be the following week.
Oh, yep. Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Stops 7. Thanks for the super chat. Appreciate you. I bet Joel Klatt and ESPN people say Army was never that good. No way people can watch Notre Dame, Penn State, and not see the athleticism difference.
Oh, he will. He'll say that. He did that against Navy, and I predicted he was the guys like him were going to do it. Remember, he predicted Notre Dame to lose to Navy, and then when they stomped him, he was like, Navy's not that good. It's just Navy. There have been a lot of people nationally who I respect who have clowned themselves this year.
Yeah.
And it's sad. And I don't mean that but like watching Joel Klatt, who I've respected and but he has taken some of the most homerish, insane, like his disrespect of Notre Dame week after week, and you're still talking about Northern Illinois, while at the same time talking about, this team's evolved since then. Like I was talking to somebody else, like I don't have a problem with people saying Florida's better than they were in September. But stop harping up on that, and you're still talking about Northern Illinois. Like you can't have it both ways. You can't say, this team has played great football the last month and then and still talk about Notre Dame and Northern Illinois when we have 9 games of data where Notre Dame's average margin of victory is by over 30 points during that stretch. Like nobody's been more dominant than Notre Dame over the last 2 months. Nobody.
Right.
But you still want to talk about whatever for them and then not apply that. Here's the thing. If your standard's the same for everybody, that's cool then. Like, hey, this team's really good, but they still lost that game. All right, cool. Then we're being consistent. But I don't know what they're like. There's another guy who has a national show that on YouTube that I have respected in the past, and I respect him. But like some of the takes, I always thought I always knew he was an SEC guy, but I thought he tried to be fair. And this year, not at all. The spinning, like, it's so hard. This is how good the SEC is. 5-5 teams can. No, guys, that just means your league's not that good. You know what I mean? Because it means you're the Big 12. That's what it means. You're the Big 12. Like the out-of-conference losses you kept taking were not a fluke. This is who you are. Your league's just not that good. A Big 12 team is dominating you this year. Texas had one bad game. That's it. So they'll still. You're absolutely correct. As stop 7. They're going to spend the heck out of this thing. They're going to spend the heck out of this thing, and they're going to clown themselves in doing so.
Yep.
This is why we need to start a national. Vince, we're going to have to talk about this offseason. We're going to have to take off with CFP Nation because this is it's bad analysis, man. It's just be fair. Just apply the same criteria to everybody, and that's all I ask. Because if you did that, your tune about Notre Dame would be different.
Right. Nicole Arbach has been doing great.
She's been great
because she put out a bunch of stats about Notre Dame after the game tonight.
Well, and she's put out something like a month ago. Guys, we need to stop talking about Northern Illinois because this is not that same team. She said that like a month ago. I think it was actually around the Navy game, I think is what it was, Vince.
We got to call to see if we can get her on the show.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. But like people say, well, she's an NBC person. Yeah, which means she hypes up the Big Ten. She should be hyping up the Big Ten, not Notre Dame. The NBC has never cared about.
Nobody else at the NBC is hyping up Notre Dame. Come on,
ever.
Come on.
And so if she was going to hype people up, she'd be hyping up the Big Ten. But I just think she's being fair and saying like, look, we need to stop talking about. Like she was talking in an article this week about we need to stop talking about, well, who'd be favored to do this. Well, Notre Dame was favored to lose at Texas A&M, and look how that turned out. You know what I mean? Like this whole, well, who'd be favored? It doesn't matter. Alabama was favored by over 20 points against Vanderbilt. Notre Dame was favored by over 20 points against Northern Illinois. That doesn't matter.
Alabama was favored by a bunch of double-digit points against Oklahoma tonight too.
Right.
How'd that work out for them? So
they've lost 2 games this year where they were over a 20-point favorite. If
Just
Notre Dame did that, that's all they'd ever talk about.
Of course.
100%. And I'm not someone, Vince, you know this, who's always been they hate Notre Dame, there's bias, but it has been really, really,
Well, it's come out more in people with this new format, because now, a one-loss team by Notre Dame has a legitimate shot at getting in, and people are upset about that because they always want to see Notre Dame get shut out. So that, it just gives them more ammo.
Let's put your 3-3, your 3-loss teams in there with literally all 3 of Ole Miss's losses are to unranked teams.
Right.
Think about that. The best team that beat them this year was LSU. They lost to 4-7 Kentucky, 6-5 Florida, and 7-4 LSU. So, yeah. Your league's not that good this year.
Oh, go back. Mark E. Stewart, thanks for the super chat. I think the lack of respect from the national media is working well for this team. I hope it continues with everyone except the playoff committee. Great show. It's USC week now.
Mark, you are spot on. Keep hating on this team. Yeah. Keep giving this team fuel. Let Notre Dame be a home underdog to Georgia in the first round of the playoff. Please, Lord, let that happen. Please let that happen.
Yeah.
That would make me very happy.
Me too.
So, yes.
Me too.
Yes.
Look, the odds of Notre Dame hosting an SEC team are very high. I don't care which
they
one
went down a little bit this week, but yes, they're still high. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, you're correct. Especially if they jump up to 5-6, the 6th seed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
no, I think you're correct, Mark. You're spot on that. And I think the playoff committee showed Notre Dame showed a pause. We like Notre Dame, but we need to see more with the first rankings having them at 10.
Right.
And that was the bottom of what I said. 8 to 10 is where they'd be. And then they went out the next week and won, and then other teams lost, and they jumped them up to 8. And then this week they jumped them up again because and they've had 2 cracks at it where they could have put Bama and Ole Miss ahead of Notre Dame.
Didn't do it.
And a lot of Notre Dame fans were predicting that they would, and a lot of national media people were predicting they would, and they didn't. Matter of fact, there was a gap was put in between Notre Dame and Alabama last week because Miami was between them. Where week before they were 8-9, or no, was it? They're 8-9, and then this past week they were 6-8, right?
Oh, you're talking about,
they were Bama. Talking about Bama.
Oh,
or the previous week they were 10-11, and then they went up to 8-10, and then this past week they were down to 1 again.
Gotcha.
But it was the previous week where they actually had gaps between them. They were 10-11, then 8-10, and this past week they were 6-7, and now Bama's going to be out. So yeah, please continue disrespecting Notre Dame. Please, 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 please.
Miles Whitaker, Army. Thanks for the super chat, Miles. Appreciate you very much. Army's first touchdown worried me that they had Indy's defense figured out. What in-game adjustments were made by Al Golden and the staff to fix this? None.
Stop committing penalties.
Yeah, none.
I mean that because if you look at that drive, Miles. So they actually Notre Dame actually had one adjustment. Is Navy came out in some empty stuff and was running up the middle on it, and Notre Dame did a nice job of defending that properly and adding a little extra hat into the box. But they had an 8-yard draw play on 1st and down, then a +4. Then they had a 6-yard run that had a 15-yard penalty tacked on.
Uh-huh.
Then they had an option pitch for 4, a fullback dive for 4, and then the quarterback ran that outside zone on 3rd and 2. They stuffed it to get to 4th and 1, and then they had the offsides penalty. Then they had 2 runs. They got down to 1st down. They had a play action pass. It was a scramble. Got +1. They went 2nd and 9 on that empty play. They ran that quarterback outside zone for +8. And on 3rd and 1, they absolutely stuffed them for a loss. And then Riley Mills, it would have made it 4th down. Riley Mills got that penalty. That gave them the 1st down, and they scored. That was about penalties. And then the one thing they did that Notre Dame needed to adjust to was the empty stuff. They basically put the quarterback in shotgun and went empty. And Notre Dame adjusted well to that and basically squeezed it down a little bit and got an extra hat in the box and said, well, if you're going to throw on us, then throw on us. We dare you to throw on us. So, but it wasn't really about that, Miles. It was really just about don't commit dumb penalties.
Yep. Pete Weber, thanks for the super chat. Team speed and depth at an all-time high. Freeman hitting another gear of intensity. Notre Dame disrespect at all-time highs. Coaching elevated to another level. Feed me the playoffs already. IB for life.
I think, Vince, the fact that the negative talk about Notre Dame has ramped up so much the last couple weeks is because they're afraid that what Notre Dame is doing. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, me too.
That.
Me too.
That they're like, okay,
becoming
hold on
real now. It's becoming real.
We got to talk this team down a little bit because they are.
Yep. There were plenty of times in the past where people weren't talking about Notre Dame, or they were low on the list because they figured Notre Dame was going to stumble and they were gonna lose at some point. But now it's starting to look real. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, this USC UCLA game is a dogfight right now, right? I mean, Notre Dame should just take care of business when they go down there, and then they're 11-1, and they're staring this thing right in the face. And there's
Devin Upau just made a tackle.
No, really?
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams that don't want to come to South Bend. I can tell you that. And there's going to be a lot of teams that don't want to face this Notre Dame team. There just are, and they're not going to say it out loud. None of them will. None of the fan bases will say it out loud. Coaches aren't going to say it out loud. Analysts aren't going to say it out loud. They're not going to want to face this team. So, hey, this is a great spot for Notre Dame to be in right now.
Yep. No doubt. All right.
Got a few more here, it looks
like.
Two
more.
All right. Josh Phillips, thanks for the super chat. Looking back, would you still prefer the loss against NIU or opening loss against A&M, but win against NIU? Great win, great show.
I mean, I think we've been asked this after each of the last 2 weeks, and my answer is always going to be the same. The Northern Illinois loss was the best thing for Notre Dame. Losing because now if Notre Dame's 9-1, 10-1 now, and their only loss is on the road to a 2-loss SEC team, they would understandably be getting less respect because you're like that A&M game. No matter what A&M does,
that was your biggest game.
It was the one where you showed, hey, look, we've been on a field that you guys have all been on, and we shut that team down.
Yeah,
and we didn't even play that well. And I think that the NIU loss, as crappy as it was, is a big reason why this team is playing the way that it's playing right now.
Yep.
Is this team got pissed off at itself, and then it got mad at the fan. It started using all these other things as fuel. And you're like, this is either going to be really good or really bad. They're either going to be an immature team that just blames everybody else and they're going to go in the tank, or they're just going to look for things to get pissed off about and then take it out on their opponent. And that's exactly what they've done.
Yep. And Marcus Freeman has found a very fine line of reminding Notre Dame about that loss, but not harping on it, because that is a fine line as a coach, right?
Right.
Because if they're just hearing it over and over again, it gets old.
It's like,
it's an old message.
Don't forget what happens when we don't prepare the right. And that's really what it is this. That's what happens when we don't prepare the right way. It's not like, watch the game again and remember how they kicked your – look, this is what happens, guys. If we don't prepare the way that we know we need to prepare and we don't lock in, then this is what can happen. We know what can happen. That's why we need to prepare, be locked in, and go about business the way we're going about business. And you nailed it, Vince. There's a right and a wrong way to do that.
Yeah. Yep. It's a fine line to walk, right?
Yep.
And a coach with minimal experience as a head coach, I think he found whatever that middle ground is, man. He found it, and he's doing a really good job with it.
Yeah, and I think at times Coach Freeman overreacted a little bit early in his tenure to things going wrong, and then he would react to it and fix that one problem, but then that would create another one,
right? Or overcorrect and
and that hasn't been the case this year. It's like
he's found his groove, I think, as a coach. And look, having Al Golden and Mike Denbrock as your coordinators, that doesn't hurt either, because there's some if Marcus Freeman is the captain, they're the rudder. You know what I mean? Like, they're helping him stay the course and do the things that he needs to do as a head coach, but then take some of that responsibility away as well and keep the offense going one way and the defense going one way and all of that. So I think having those two veteran coordinators, I mean, I can't even speak to how important that is.
Yeah. Last one, Vince.
All right. From Jim. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate you very much. I loved that Marcus Freeman was fired up at halftime. No way he was letting them come out flat. Your thoughts, please.
Oh, dude, I texted all you guys at the same time. I was like, Marcus Freeman's pissed.
Yeah.
And I was happy about it. He looked so annoyed. Like, even when Catherine Tappan was talking, he was just like, looking the way he's looking at her. He's like, he wasn't mad at her. He was just, he was so annoyed by how that happened.
He was ready to get in the locker room and lay in. Like, he was ready to like, let the team know, like, great, you're up 28-7, and I'm pissed because you guys, it should be more. Because
he said it's not about the score, it's about the standard. And that's been the thing. It's like, I don't care about 28-7. We should be beating them 28-7. You know, at least 28-7. But it should be this because we didn't do this, this, and this. He was genuinely annoyed. And it was written all over his face. He was pissed. And then went out and, you know, and they came out in the first play of the second half. They just touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the first play of the second half, wasn't it, Vince? Yeah, it was the first play of the second half. It was like
the very first play, 70-something or 68 yards, whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was like I was just settling in from halftime, you know, trying to get my kids situated and whatnot. I don't even think I sat down yet. And I look over and he's busting a long run.
Yeah.
And then I see that there's a flag. I was like, oh.
That's what I was about to be pissed off. And I was like, what?
Gotta be kidding me.
You know, I didn't see any holds.
No.
I didn't, you know, I thought maybe like it looked like one of the D linemen was like kind of in the neutral zone. I thought that might have been it.
Gotcha.
Because I didn't see any holds, and then they were like hands in the face, and I was like, if this is on Pat Coogan, I'm going to absolutely destroy my television right now. But it wasn't. No. Pat did his job.
And by the way, that was a bad call anyway because it was not hands to the face on that kid. He had all like shoulder pad. But anyway,
but it wouldn't. Well, and what pissed me off is they spent the next 5 minutes talking about it shouldn't have been a penalty. It didn't, guys. They declined the penalty.
Right. It wasn't even a penalty. It didn't exist.
Yes.
Like when you look back,
Let's talk about the fact that Notre Dame went 68 yards. I mean, Army's given up 85 yards a game rushing, and they just went 68 on one play. How about we maybe talk about why that happened?
Well,
you know
he was
Blackledge is awful.
He was still excited about the fact that Penn State pulled it out.
Awful. People were complaining, oh, he's anti-Notre Dame. And I'm like, come on, guys, we're being paranoid. And then I listen, I'm like, dude, I think this guy wants Notre Dame to lose his football game.
Yeah, he does.
It was terrible. Terrible. So that's it, Vince.
Okay.
That is the Super Chat.
Well, hey, thanks for hanging out with us, guys, into the wee hours of the morning. It's what happens when we got a night game, but we're excited that all of y'all stuck around with us and to talk about Notre Dame's 49-14 win over number 19 ranked Army. The chaos begins in the college football playoff rankings, and we will talk about that tomorrow when we discuss upon further review tomorrow evening at 7:00 or thereabouts. We'll see how the day goes. But we're gonna break this thing down even more, and then we're gonna turn the page to USC. So make sure you stay locked into Irish Breakdown. We will continue to bring you shows, content over at irishbreakdown.com. If you want the analysis, you head over to the boards at irishbreakdown.com. You know, all of the good stuff is over there. Stay locked into our shows. We're gonna keep bringing it to you. We're gonna keep bringing it to you all week, and obviously for the rest of the year and into the off season. So make sure you stay locked in with us. Make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell. Share with your family and friends. And hey, for Brian and Sean and Ryan, I'm Vince, and we will talk to you next time on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Have a great night, everybody, or morning, depending on how you look at it.